Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
Got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughened him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
No, I am not Peyton Ansley John Milton. I am the agent authorized to represent Peyton Ansley John Milton as written in all capital letters.
Thank you. And as to Mr. Milton, is there a competency concern, or is this
I am not represented by anybody besides myself. In my sovereign capacity, appreciate you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did have an opportunity to speak to him. I read him the reports.
Who is him?
Who's him? Who's him? I tell you, welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. Thank you for being here. I will tell you, everyone's like, pretend the alert didn't go off. I did not get the alert. The world could be ending here in the United States, and I did not hear about it. I'm a little bit nervous. I pay top dollar for my service for my phone. I have unlimited service, so I can stream 24/7, unlimited data, the highest 5G connection they'll give me in my area. But I did not get the alert. So, what does that mean? What does that mean? Apparently, I'm not important. I tell you who is important, though. Jill Ballard's important. Jill Ballard was first in chat today, this afternoon. Let's wait for the music to stop so I can stop yelling at you guys. Deep breath, everybody. Okay, there we go. Let's dial it down just a little bit. I'm excited to be back from lunch. I'm excited to be here with you all. It's going to be a great afternoon. This case has been so much fun to watch this whole time. It's just been amazing. Okay, let's turn that one off.
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible. Off. I apologize.
All right. I will tell you that I was talking to my partner out in the Airbnb, which it's almost home. It looks so good. It looks so good. We've got the sink dropped into the countertop, and it's one of those big, wide, deep sinks. It's going to have the big drop down sprayer faucet thing where the one the kids grab and spray each other in the kitchen with. We're going to have one of those in there. Still have a little bit of tiling to do and some bathroom fixtures, and then we're pretty much done. So
I'm not a cat.
Anyway, I was out there talking to him, and his alert went off, but mine did not. Let's see. Debbie says, I got mine in Spanish, but luckily I translated it. That's awesome. It knew you were listening to Spanish all day, and it knew that's what you needed to hear it in. Jill Ballard, by the way, thank you so much for being first in chat.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
I do that often, and I would admit that I do that. That is an accurate definition of what I do. First in chat comes with its prize, penalty, or punishment, depending on how you view it. And that is internet ownership and maintenance of everything internet related. And Jill, unfortunately today, I think that also means you have to make sure everybody got their alert. So if you could quickly just send everyone a quick email and then follow up with me if there's anyone who did not get it. We'll just want a running count of how many people have got it, maybe like every 5 minutes or so. Just update me with the numbers of where we stand, and I'll go ahead and report that back to FEMA for you. So thank you very much for your help there. You didn't know that's what you were signing up today to do. So Amber alerts are way louder, says Kathleen. Have you tried pepperoni? You know I can't say big words, Epic. Have you tried the pepperoni Pepperoncini. How can I not say these words together? Pepperoncini. Peppers, aka banana peppers. I've tried pickled jalapenos. Is that close enough? I don't know. I've probably tried them. Are these the ones that come in like you get Pizza Hut pizza and there's like a free pepper inside? Are those the ones we're talking about, or are those jalapenos? Because I eat those. All right. I will tell you, I set the alarm on my phone and I started recording. I recorded the screen, so I wanted to catch everything. I wanted to get the alert, to have my own personal copy of this, amazing alert, and it did not come in. Probably because I was recording, and they're like, we don't allow that. Take a poll, says Mary Murphy. I would, but that's going to be Jill Ballard's responsibility. So Jill, you've got to take the poll in chat. In chat. Please report everyone to Jill Ballard. If you got the alert or didn't, just a thumbs up, thumbs down emoji. That's all we need. And then Jill keep it running total for us. That would be great. I'm just giving you a hard time, Jill. You don't have to do that. Like, not every 5 minutes. Just once an hour would be enough. All right. We are coming back to what is going to end up to be a short afternoon. A short afternoon because we went so long on the morning. We were supposed to be done before lunch, before noon for lunch. We're almost at 3 o'clock Eastern time. So we have a short afternoon. Do we know what happens, says Golly G, with Mr. Anderson?
Don't miss the forest for
I
the
do
trees.
not. I do not know what happened. It may have been personal. It may be family related, personal, and just is not being shared at this time. That's all I've got. I don't know what's happened there. So if you've seen anything, let me know.
Are we going to address subject matter jurisdiction?
No, we're not. The judge already did. He sort of addressed subject matter jurisdiction this morning when we
How
had
does he do that?
our lawyer who testified from a cruise ship off the coast of Greece, and he said this. Because you're outside the boundaries of Florida, my authority ends at the state border. That subject matter jurisdiction, I can only handle stuff within that. And so the witness had to agree to.
There's a lawsuit.
In case there was any perjury issues, to be governed by the rules of Florida when he testified. So that was sort of addressing subject matter jurisdiction in a way. The alert was a little bit of a letdown for many of you.
Alex stole it as well.
Pepperoncinis are good on pizza. Jill, you're keeping track of all these thumbs up, thumbs up, thumb down. Oh, some people have got 3 thumbs up because they got 3 alerts. We've got a thumbs down there. Make sure Audrey, if you can resend it to Audrey, Jill, that would be great.
I object.
All rise. Court is now in session.
Let's see. Joan also needs a resend on that FEMA alert, if you can make that happen. All right. Hank Blatt, you have too many devices if you got that many alerts. You need to maybe wean yourself off the devices or
bring the jury.
Sell a few on eBay or something. You guys got alerts on your phone and your TV. We've got several connected devices, including our thermostat and everything else, but we did not get any alerts on any of my devices that I know of. Do we have a zombie update? No zombie updates that I know of. Got a YouTube update. Apparently,
Alex stole it as well.
Judge Jeffrey Middleton is continuing a hearing about a dangerous dog in the 3B District Court right now. So that's the only update I got. Love Judge Middleton. We haven't seen his court in a long time, being court hopping. But we have other things to do. Let's go over here. Try this one. Is that
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible.
It is better.
I
like this one.
apologize.
Let's bring in some. There's our objection overlay. Now I just need the objections, and we'll be there. That's going to be box source 2. Bingo. There we go. 559 objections. Did the judge get her flowers? Yes, and I think they're still on the bench. Let me just do a quick peek, if I can. Not sure if she's live right this moment or not, but usually she is. Judge Boyd. There we go. Got like a couple S's in that for some reason. She is live right now, and yes, the flowers are still on the bench. So just doing a quick glance. Let's pop over here. Those flowers. Oh, Judge, seriously? Like you knew right when I cut to it. Let me go back here. Okay, they're right here. These are the flowers we sent.
Yes, Your Honor.
Right there.
Ma'am, do you know who Tamara Sales is?
I don't know who she is, but it doesn't matter because we're not following that trail right now. Right, had some delicious spaghetti for lunch made by my 8-year-old, and it was yummy. I don't know how he did it, but it was fantastic. With way too much Parmesan cheese on it.
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
Okay, let's get ready for court here as we're getting all set. Is there anything we need to cover?
Don't miss the forest for the trees.
Did she mention when she got them? Beth, she didn't say anything to us, but we didn't ask her to. There was a little note that thanked her and her staff for the great work she does. And it was signed by the RA community, and I signed it as well. And she said they were beautiful, but she sort of went off air when she received them initially and didn't say anything. And I think, honestly, that's better. Why do we send flowers? It wasn't my idea. Chat just said, hey, that would be awesome. We should send her flowers. And then donations started coming in to send the judge flowers. And I can't really accept a donation to send the judge flowers and not send flowers. So we sent flowers. So that's how it worked. And another channel, Jay, on the Shaming of Jay, he sent her flowers as well after she agreed to do an interview on his channel. But we just did it because we liked her. Because she's a queen, says Ashley. That's why. And she deserved flowers. Her face lit up when they were brought to her. She did. They arrived Monday, almost right before noon, like 20 minutes before noon or something. She has a purple purse to match it. That was great. What happened to Mr. Anderson? Last poet, we have not heard. It may be something that happened personally in his family, a message that was sent to him through the court, but we haven't heard what it is. It appears to be a loss of a personal nature, or that personally affects him, but possibly does not affect the trial. Okay. Her birthday is in a month, Anne. The judge's birthday is on November 2nd, I think, or 6th, or something like that. The first week of November. Okay. Is there anything else that we need to answer? We sort of abruptly went to lunch, so I'm not sure if there was anything else. Robert, rubbing it in that you got 2 alerts.
Please be seated.
Oh, it's a good thing we're here. It's time to begin. Time to begin. PASSWORD, 1, 2, 3, enter. Boom.
Not yet, but they're in. Okay, great.
Keep the jury on standby. We're ready to begin.
Back from lunch. What do we have this afternoon?
Before we move on to this afternoon, I just need to, on the record, advise the court, and I told plaintiff's counsel that they showed an exhibit to Dr. Cantu that's actually not been entered into evidence. Photograph 25, 29, 60, the kids on the kayak, they said, this is in evidence, it's not in evidence. I double checked with the clerk. At this juncture, I would suggest that it just be put into evidence, but they referenced and showed a photograph not in evidence.
Okay, what's the number again?
25, 29, 60.
Do you guys remember seeing kids on the kayak?
60?
Yeah.
The court receives 2529-60. What's next?
We had redacted a letter to Mr. Zimmerman we were talking about before we found it, and we redacted all reference to anything other than one in a sentence, Johns Hopkins Hospital. It's actually from Mr. Shapiro. We redacted that, and it says, please cease and desist from any and all contact or communication with Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital and their employees. We will consider any future communication between you and their employees as a violation of Florida Bar Rule 4-4.2. It's dated December 7th, 2016. Move to admit.
We object. There's a sequence of letters that would explain what was going on before and after, including a follow-up letter from my office telling him he's welcome to come to the hospital and we're going to ensure that we comply with orders. This was never disclosed to us prior to Mr. Zimmerman testifying. They plan to use this with him. We need notice of this. So we object at this point. We would need to admit we were going to do this. It was never admitted to the witness. So I don't know if you need to hear more argument on this, but I didn't have a chance to cross-examine him on this I had no notice that this was coming up on exhibits that they're supposed to get us 24 hours in advance, which they didn't. So we objected at this point.
This is trial exhibit 2793-001. It's been around for forever. My memory is correct.
We didn't have it.
Oh, we did not have it?
Mr. Zimmerman sent it to us after his testimony, after testifying about the existence of the letter.
When? Oh, today?
Yes.
I take
that's why we didn't get it
There were
beforehand.
lots of these. I thought it was a trial exhibit. We'd already disclosed it. But
it's not coming in.
It's brief, and it is to the point.
But a concern I have with a lawyer to a lawyer letter is you're now dealing with collateral issues that are we now going to explain what the rules of professional responsibility are? It opens up so many cans of worms that are collateral to the issue before the jury. So I'm going to sustain the objection on that ground, as well as it just apparently wasn't even provided until after.
Not before the witness testified, Judge. We were totally unprepared for that, which seemed the intent.
And on that note, Your Honor, real briefly, I think we need a curative instruction on this too, because he applied to the jury in his testimony with no notice to us that somehow the hospital blocked him from seeing Maya.
Normally, when someone asks for a curative instruction, they hand me what they want.
Okay, we will
as opposed to just an abstract.
I understand, Your Honor. We'll discuss it.
I'm not saying that we're going to do it or not. We really need to get in the habit of actually proffering language as opposed to.
Yes, Your Honor.
Just talking. Okay.
The last very brief issue before Dr. Henschke testifies, most of her records that talk about relapse deal with litigation-related stress. That's clearly not a compensable action in this. And just so I'm not jumping out of my seat, I was wondering from the plaintiffs if they're going to be arguing that, or proffering testimony through Dr. Henschke that Maya is having relapses because of the stress of the litigation, which would not be a material issue in this case or compensable.
It is. I am offering it for the purposes of demonstrating that she has relapses. The defense has contended that she was just bright, sunshiny, and smiling through the entire period of time after she left their hospital. This demonstrates and proves that the child did have a relapse. The only thing, we can look for exactly what it says. It says there was a deposition. That's all. It doesn't say anything else about it.
Can I see what we're talking about?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Have we been provided the redacted copies yet? We still don't have a redacted copy.
This is the unredacted copy, Your Honor.
There's a whole bunch of handwritten notes on this, so I'm not.
I think it's hers.
No.
Well,
have you shown this to Mr. Shapiro before I start looking at something that has a whole bunch of handwritten?
There's no handwritten notes on her records.
I just did. Let me look.
Handwritten notes. Perhaps we can just put up one of the records. It's a trial exhibit,
Greg.
2011-16.
Yeah, here's her records. This is
2011-16?
Correct, Your Honor.
May I see it, please?
I cannot.
And
I cannot guarantee that Zoe would wear it.
Yeah. So
Zoe's
the third paragraph, patient states the trial against the hospital got pushed back and school started a month or two ago. She's struggling to focus this year. Midway through the paragraph, due to the trial being pushed back so many times, she does not have faith things will happen on time.
Zoe's a mature dog that does not
All
like to
four
be
notes talk about her stress level being related to litigation, and I'm honestly looking for guidance how to handle this.
So you're...
What I would ask, this is what I would ask from the plaintiff in the court, that while they can certainly ask Dr. Henschke if Maya experiencing stress has led to what she may describe as a relapse or her symptoms, that's fine. I think that's the way we can cover this. But to go into the fact that this was caused by the stress of this litigation, by defense counsel, by any things of that nature would not just be prejudicial, but would also be, it would not be compensable.
I do not intend to make any accusations as against counsel or the litigation. It is in her file as the reason, truthfully, that she had one of the reasons she had a relapse, and the jury would be entitled to. There's nothing particularly damaging here. It's simply that this has become a stressful situation for her, and part of our case is to demonstrate a stressful situation. It's not part of the compensation. Again, what we're trying to establish here, Judge, is that she was not fine, and that her CRPS gets activated by these types of situations, by stressful situations. They can cross all they want, and I don't intend to come up and ask her a ton about, now, were they mean to you in the deposition? No. But in her records, it should remain truthful as to the reason. I will save the arguments about what actually happened and what's actually gone on in this litigation for another time. But for these purposes here, this is simply the truth. And it's not being derogatory in any way to the defense or to Johns Hopkins.
Just very, very brief response. The problem with this is it's not compensable, and I don't know how to address this without either redacting most of these records or having the court inform the jury that any stress related to the litigation process is not something the jury can award damages for.
Why are we hearing this at this time? They've had at least, when was the first time we sent the exhibit list to them?
And more importantly, we went through this morning on this exhibit, and we've been in the process of redacting and going back and forth in this crawls for the past 4.5 hours. We finally got the exhibit correct with the redactions that were discussed this morning, and now we come in here and we're blindsided with new redactions that are requested.
Sharon, thank you very much.
By any stretch of the imagination.
Can we just have one person talk at a time?
I'm not asking for additional redactions. I would have been happy to bring this up at 9 in the morning, but we had the jury waiting. I thought it would be better to do it this afternoon. All of that being noted, it's just a matter of the argument that the relapses, if they're related to litigation-related stress, are not compensable. And I still do not have a copy of the redacted records to proceed on this witness.
Your tech guy does.
As of when, he does not have it.
Like I just said, Ms. Krause and I just worked this out in the hallway over the lunch break.
Okay, but my trial technologist still does not have a copy of the redactions. So anyway.
Are you asking me for a ruling?
I am asking you for a ruling, Your Honor. I apologize for being vague. We would like a ruling that the plaintiff cannot ask this witness on the witness stand that what the cause of her stress is, and since these records are going to come into evidence, we would like the jury to be informed, and we'll draft appropriate instruction for your consideration at the appropriate time, since this is going in evidence, that litigation-related stress would not be a compensable damage to the plaintiff. But I won't ask for that in the abstract. We can draft something to that effect for your consideration.
Is Maya going on the stand right now?
And we should not have, this is something I don't believe that it's true, and we haven't had a chance to research it. But if there is something about, because you mentioned litigation, that it somehow becomes compensable, then that can be handled with a jury instruction.
Here's my view. I do not want there to be discussion about the trial being moved back, because I don't want to open up the issue of that amongst the jury as to, what happened. Was it somebody one side's fault or the other side's fault? That's clearly not something that is in the purview of the jury. I don't see, however, how you can legitimately keep out the concept of, in a general sense, that litigation is stressful, and that Maya, obviously going through litigation, has stress associated with it. I don't see how you cannot say that. Now, I'll consider the instruction about, members of the jury, you've heard that, but understand that that piece is not compensable. I think that's the way to deal with it. But I really don't want to get into discussions, questions, Mr. Anderson, about the reason why the trial got delayed last year. I just putting that out there.
That's not my intent in any way. I simply want the record. There has to be some reason why she had this relapse, and that's, unfortunately, was the reason. So my intention is not to do that. So, the court having ruled, I would like to proffer the testimony of Jacqueline Henschke regarding the sexual abuse.
Can we do that after the jury goes home?
Yeah.
Because I've got a jury waiting.
All right, Your Honor. I'll await that. Okay.
We still need the exhibits from your technologists right now.
Mr. Reyes, have you finished whatever redactions that were agreed to?
It's being sent here in a moment, Your Honor.
Your Honor, is now the time to hand the court 2011 in its redacted form.
Is that the one from this morning?
It is, with the redactions that were corrected over the last few hours.
Be happy to give it. You can give it to the clerk.
All right. Thank you.
I was just looking at my notes, Judge. And part of my introduction is how she got involved in this. And in it, she will explain that she was contacted to be a safe harbor, and why and how she was contacted, and what the direction was to her. And that is obviously very relevant, how she came involved in this litigation. And it certainly is the truth. So I will not emphasize it, but I do want to be able to say that she was retained in connection with this litigation. And the purpose was for her to be someone that Maya could talk to.
Stop. On that issue, you suggested that. I never said that was allowable. You seem to feel that a plaintiff is allowed to have doctors without the records being turned over when the plaintiff is making a claim. I never agreed to that. That's something that you wanted, but I never said so. I don't think you should try to make those statements or elicit that information from this doctor, because that was never agreed to by the court.
I'm unsure. I believe, Judge, the way that it went down was we presented the court with the fact that Maya Kowalski had no one to talk to, because every single time she ever had talked to anyone, the defense would subpoena the records and then depose them. And so we proposed to the court and to defense counsel that this child have a safe haven, someone she could talk to, and we pledged in return we would not use her records and we would not use her testimony if only Maya could have some place to talk. And then as time went on, the defense moved and wanted to do a subpoena ducis tecum, and that was allowed over objection. And then the defense wanted to take a deposition, which was allowed over objection. Then once they'd already deposed the doctor, and once they made it clear that they intended to use the doctor's testimony, then I put the doctor on our list because I had to counter that.
And again, I did not make the rules with respect to what is and what is not discoverable relative to when a plaintiff makes an affirmative claim. Those have been well known. You knew them. And what you were asking was a legal impossibility. I dealt with that months and months and months ago. And I said no. And I'm saying no again. I don't know why we have to keep talking about the same issue over and over again.
I need instructions.
I'm done.
I need instructions.
Please don't go into that issue with this witness. Now, may I bring in the jury?
Yeah, yes, Judge, but I need to inform her not to, what she can and cannot say for a moment.
Okay.
If the plaintiff wants to withdraw her, we're not going to object.
No, we're not withdrawing her.
Wow. Interesting. Sounds like the plaintiff tried to make a deal, thought they had a deal. Turned out that there was no deal, and now they're upset that there was no deal. This whole safe harbor thing, the judge says, that was your idea. That was not how that's not how I ruled. P. Will, for real. Tell you what, You can start donating, and I'll tell you when. I'll tell you when you reach the level where I'll cut my hair like the judges. It might be a while. Just saying. Okay, yes, it's very spicy. It's already started. Okay, I need you guys to help me on the objections. I get carried away in the emotion of the moment, and I forget to count them. So if I have missed any, I think there were 2 so far.
At this point?
Yep.
Bring in the jury.
I think there were 2 so far. Doctor's here. Jury's coming in. Let me know if I missed any this afternoon. Keep me honest here. Very, very funny.
Sure, is that right?
My neighbor is mowing his lawn meticulously for like 6 different directions. He mows over it. So you're going to hear lawnmower in the background pretty much all afternoon.
Okay, welcome back. Members of the jury, want to confirm while you were away, please be seated. While you were away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves, you did not do any investigation, and you received no information. Is that correct? And that you have not seen any media coverage about this case since the last time. And that you were not approached by anyone. And your cell phones went off at 2:18. Did yours go off early? Yes. Yeah, so did mine. Okay, Mr. Anderson, call your next witness, sir.
Dr. Jacqueline Henschke.
Stand here. Or you can raise your hand.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Right this way. We're just going to have a seat on that witness stand.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Dr. Jacqueline Henschke.
And what is your specialty of profession?
I am an adult and child psychiatrist.
And have you been asked here to offer opinions having examined and treated Maya Kowalski during the period of 2021 and 2022?
2022 to 2023, yes.
Oh, 23, excuse me. Can you give the jury a little bit of detail about your background, training, and experience, beginning with your undergraduate degree?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., and went to...
You have a very soft voice. You might want to talk to them.
I do. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., went to Georgetown University for my undergraduate degree, spent a little time in New York bartending, and then decided to go to medical school at Tulane University in New Orleans.
I like the bartending slid in there. That's awesome.
I decided initially to go into pediatrics, so I did my intern year, which is your first year of your residency at Miami Children's Hospital in pediatrics. And then I decided psychiatry was a little more my thing. So I transferred to George Washington University and completed my adult psychiatry residency. And after that, went to Stanford in Palo Alto, California, and completed my child psychiatry fellowship.
And then since that time, have you been, is that where you did your residency then? Was it Stanford? Or?
Stanford was my fellowship for child psychiatry, and then the residency for adult was at George Washington University. You have to complete your adult training first, and then you do your child psychiatry training.
And so the jury understands, are you board certified?
I'm actually double board certified, so I have to be board certified in adult psychiatry, and then I had to do all the exams to get board certified in child psychiatry.
Following the completion of your schooling, can you tell the jury about where you started your practice?
Yeah. So after I completed my fellowship at Stanford, I went on to return to New Orleans post-Katrina. It was in 2009. And I was a professor there, and an associate professor, and then I went on. I was hired to head the consult liaison team, which is just a fancy way of saying I was a psychiatrist that was in the hospital that all of the primary teams would call if there was an issue, if a child was depressed because they were receiving chemotherapy or the family was distressed, then I would go see them.
Before we continue on, can you tell the jury that when you went back to Tulane post-Katrina, did you see and treat victims of Katrina?
Yes.
Tell the jury primarily what the diagnoses were for those victims that had been through that.
Most of the primary diagnoses were post-traumatic stress disorder. In general, when you're a child psychiatrist, you tend to see a lot of trauma, especially if you're seeing children 6 and up.
Okay. And so, how long have you been in private practice? How long have you been a practicing child and adult psychiatrist?
I've been practicing since 2005.
And the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist is the psychologist has a PhD and you have a medical doctor degree?
Correct.
Right, so you can prescribe medications and so forth?
Yes, but I'm also trained in therapy in addition to prescribing medications.
All right. Can you tell the jury then, let's continue on with your experience then in hospital settings around the country?
So at Tulane, I was head of the consult liaison service. So that meant I worked primarily at Tulane Hospital. When I was at Stanford doing my training, I of course worked at the Children's Hospital at Stanford. And when I was at Miami Children's, that was a full children's hospital as well. And then I've worked in full psychiatric hospitals that are only seeing psychiatric patients.
And so, how long have you worked in and about hospitals as opposed to a private practice?
I would say in hospitals throughout my whole career. So there are times where I have done outpatient, but at the same time I will cover a hospital on the weekend to do the consults. So throughout my whole career, since 2005, I've been working in hospital settings.
And where do you live now, and then where do you practice?
I currently live in St. John's, Florida, between Jacksonville and St. Augustine. And right now I'm doing full-time telemedicine to a psychiatric hospital in Colorado. I'm licensed in Colorado and Florida.
And how does that work out? Is this telemedicine? Or?
Yes, it's full-time telemedicine. I see the kids over telemedicine, and sometimes I do see adults as well.
How many cases of PTSD and depression can you estimate that you have seen and or treated in the course of your career so far?
I would say thousands. Cases of PTSD and depression, ADHD, all of the pretty common diagnoses, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, eating disorders.
Well, what I'd like you to do is explain a little bit about the history of PTSD and to differentiate it from other psychological psychiatric problems.
So PTSD has been known as a phenomenon since at least the Civil War. It's been documented. It was called soldier's heart. And then in World War I, it was called shell shock for soldiers returning home. World War II, battle, it was called shell shock for soldiers returning home. World War II, battle fatigue, was also in 1980 is when PTSD. 1980 is when PTSD officially entered the manual. That's the manual we use to make diagnoses.
Sorry, we're having some feed issues.
And in 1980, there was a big shift from just making diagnosis based on observations to using studies and evidence-based medicine to make those diagnoses. So PTSD entered at that time. And we could see from the reason it entered, we could see slews of, large numbers of veterans returning from Vietnam with PTSD, really affecting the course of their lives. It wasn't just affecting them as they were in the moment of the trauma, but even
this is
lasted
so wrong.
long after the trauma had occurred.
So many of you need therapy.
Is PTSD a dangerous psychological disorder or psychiatric disorder in the sense of harm to the patient?
Yeah, it puts you at risk for many complications throughout your life.
So,
this is not going a good direction, guys.
Were some of those victims of Katrina, were they children with PTSD?
Yes.
And what were some of the recurring factors and things that you noted there?
You mean the symptoms that they would present with?
Yes, rudderless and...
Depression, anxiety, chronic medical conditions would exacerbate their PTSD as well. School absences, school failures, not being able to kind of continue on the natural course where you would expect a child to. And it was also stressful for the family to manage overall.
Now, you were referred at one point over to Maya Kowalski to care and treat for her?
Yes.
And I believe that came about when you and I met at a social function for our children, and I found out you were a pediatric psychiatrist and asked if you would help. Do you have your notes there before you so you can tell the jury the first time you saw Maya?
I do. The first time I saw her was October 27th, 2022.
And for the record, Judge, these are in at Trial Exhibit 2011-016 is the first one. The last page, I think, is 041. All right, so how did Maya Kowalski present?
So she initially came to me because she was having a resurgence of not doing so well. She was having more symptoms, flares of her symptoms of complex regional pain syndrome. And she was also reporting symptoms of depression, PTSD, anxiety, and a lot of problems with focus.
Now, to the best of your knowledge, had she been diagnosed with PTSD or depression prior to October 7th, 2016?
Not to my knowledge. So I only met with Maya and spoke with her father. I didn't review any of her previous records.
All right, and the date of this first visit was again?
I don't know what you guys had for lunch.
October 27th,
I think a few of you might be drunk. I'm just saying.
And what, if anything, was significant in the history of Maya in terms of events in her life that you focused on in determining a probable or working diagnosis and treatment?
So, what she reported to me, which was relevant, and I can read directly from my notes, she said that with her complex regional pain syndrome, she felt alone and misunderstood, but she said after she was hospitalized at Johns Hopkins and her mother's suicide, she said, quote, it was a different kind of sadness. And so she was really struggling with...
How had she been doing up to the point that she saw you? Was she functional, non-functional?
She was...
That was the witness's phone.
Somewhat functional, but not what I would consider to the best of her potential. She was doing online schooling. She was avoiding going to any doctor visits at all because she was very afraid of what would happen to her. And she reported significant symptoms of PTSD associated with physicians, hospitals, going to St. Petersburg. Just driving over the bridge made her feel anxious. She reported flashbacks about the hospitalization and general worries about her safety and her family's safety. And she also had withdrawn from activities that she had previously enjoyed doing prior to the hospital.
You guys are crazy.
Did
I'm
those
trying to focus
include
on the trial here.
piano and skating and I forget the other one that she was involved in at the time.
Piano and skating she had
Piano.
withdrawn from. She said she was afraid to participate in ice skating. She said she was worried that if she got hurt, she'd have to go see a doctor or have to go to a hospital. And she also said that's why she didn't participate in any school sports.
Now, how strong were her, and then I want to go into the signs, symptoms under DSM-5 of PTSD and her symptoms. But how much was she able to sleep without taking any medications?
So that is one of the symptoms of depression and PTSD. She had reported to me that if she didn't take something for sleep, and at that time she was on a non-addictive sleep medication called trazodone, that it could take approximately 2 to 4 hours to fall asleep without it, and if she didn't take it, she was waking approximately 3 to 4 times a night.
All right, and so did she also have some additional would you call these phobias?
No.
That she had? All right, but traveling over the, I guess, Sunshine Bridge, was that one that caused her anxiety?
Yes, I wouldn't characterize them as phobias. I would say they were intense fears that she had that kept her from doing what we would consider a person without PTSD to be able to do.
And had she become concerned in seeing any doctor that she did not feel safe with? In other words, that she hadn't gone to previously and knew?
Yes. She said that she would avoid going to St. Petersburg. She would avoid going across the bridge. If she heard a word or a phrase that had been used during her hospitalization, she felt very uncomfortable. She said she couldn't watch any movies that she watched in the hospital because they brought up negative memories. And a quote from her was, I would, quote, I would do anything to, quote, avoid seeing doctors.
Is avoidance a symptom of
Yes.
PTSD? So when you say she was hypervigilant about her safety, what does that mean?
So hypervigilance means like you are always on edge and worried about your safety. So a lot of people who have suffered from PTSD will say they like to sit in the back of the restaurant so they can see everything that's going on, so nothing can surprise them. That's an example of hypervigilance. You are just always kind of wound tight and on edge.
Fight or flight?
Mm-hmm. You're mostly feeling the flight.
Did it extend to even seeing people out in public that looked like some of the people she had dealt with at Johns Hopkins?
Yes.
Explain what happened there.
So that was in my notes from December 29th. That was my third visit with Maya. She had gotten a job at Cracker Barrel, and she told me that she saw a woman that looked like the social worker from the hospital named Kathy Beatty. And she said she felt, these are direct quotes from her, and I felt so scared I had to tell myself it was not her. She wanted to go home after that, leave her shift, but she said she was very afraid to explain that to her boss. She didn't know what to say. She said she felt a drop in her stomach, her heart was racing. She felt embarrassed because she was staring at the woman, really trying to figure out if it was Kathy Beatty or not. And she said she felt on edge for the rest of the night.
Did you first examine her before completely reviewing her prior medical records?
Yes.
And what is the purpose there?
I just wanted to form my own independent opinion without too much influence. I mean, I did know generally what had happened to her. And there weren't, I didn't request the bulk of her medical records. She was just seeing me to have somebody to confide in, to receive some therapy. She was concerned herself about her focus, and she said she had tried everything that she could think of non-medication wise to address her anxiety and CRPS, but those things had not been working lately.
Was she displaying any, either at this point or in the future, any aversion to medications?
Yes.
What? Tell us about that.
She was comfortable with taking trazodone because she had been already taking that from her primary care doctor. She did agree to try one medication called gabapentin from me, but that took me over 2 sessions. Usually when I see somebody, they're open to taking medication because that's part of the reason that they're seeing me. But for Maya, it took a little bit longer to develop a rapport, form a relationship, gain her trust. I also spoke with her father as well. And after 2 or 3 sessions, they agreed to try the gabapentin, but she didn't have a good reaction to it and came off of it with my instructions, as I instructed her. But she didn't want to try another medication after that could potentially address depression and CRPS, some of the pain associated with it.
What, if anything, was significant in her past psychiatric history?
She was afraid that if she tried a new medication, which is what she told me, she was afraid that there could be repercussions like she had had previously.
And what was her fear in that regard?
She might have to get hospitalized.
And then what happens?
That she could get taken away from her family again, separated from her father and her brother.
And at this point she was being raised just by her father?
Correct.
Now, she had, I believe, had stated that she'd had a prior panic attack, but this was differentiated.
She reported having panic attacks in the past. They had improved somewhat, but she had a panic attack. She told me on 2 occasions when she found out that she'd have to, when the trial was delayed, and that she might have to undergo another deposition, and then when she...
Yeah, we can, we'll skip over that and get to the past medical history that was of some significance. If you look there, what was the main underlying diagnosis physically for this child?
Complex regional pain syndrome.
All right. And did she explain to you what the pain was about?
Yeah, she described the nature of her pain. I did ask about it. She said she would feel a burning sensation, pins and needles pain, consistent with nerve pain, hot and cold in her extremities, weakness in her legs, and she described that a flare could last anywhere from 20 minutes to 24 hours. And she said years ago the pain could last for days. She did tell me that was on the first evaluation of Maya. She did tell me later on that she always feels, some days it can just go back to the baseline pain, which she said could be tolerable.
Now, you noted under some of the history that her mother had committed suicide. Can you tell the jury then, in this situation, if that is significant to your diagnosis and treatment, that her mother had committed suicide?
Yeah, so whenever we have a first-degree relative that's committed suicide, we consider that a risk factor for that patient as well, as a potential risk factor for suicide. For her, PTSD, any mental health diagnosis is also a risk factor, and I determined that she had major depressive disorder and PTSD, and having a chronic syndrome like complex regional pain syndrome is also a risk factor for things like suicide.
And then did you note in her history that for some periods here and there that she had been separated from her mother and her father for periods of time against her will.
That's what she reported to me, yes.
So then, after this first visit, what was your overall working diagnosis?
After this first visit, my diagnosis was major depressive disorder, recurrence, PTSD, chronic, and then I had put also rule out ADHD for her because she was having a lot of problems with focus and concentration at school.
Now, once you had completed your examination of her, did you have an opportunity then to look in her history to see, since all of this happened to her, if any other physicians, psychologists, psychiatrists had diagnosed her with PTSD?
Ryan? After this initial visit?
Sorry, I
yes,
tried to
when
mute
you went through
myself
the
before I called
history,
my kid.
Was there any indication that she had been diagnosed, says past diagnoses?
Not that I was aware of, no.
At page 23, at the under static risks and then down under past psychiatric or above past psychiatric medications.
Yes, she had told me that, but I hadn't looked at it in any records.
Okay, so having gone through this now, let's talk a little bit about the signs, symptoms of PTSD, and what is DSM-5 now, if you could.
So DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and 5 means it's in its 5th revision. So it's in its 5th edition, essentially. And it's the manual that we use to diagnose psychiatric illnesses. For PTSD, you have to have exposure to a serious injury that is actual or threatened. It doesn't have to be somebody actually harming you. It can be a perceived threat.
I've got my yada yada yada.
Or violence.
Out for
you
this,
have to have direct exposure to a trauma.
I just can't follow it.
You have to have intrusive symptoms. You have to have avoidance symptoms. You have to have symptoms that are, they say, altered cognitions, like your perceptions of things are a little bit different. You see things a little bit differently. And then symptoms of arousal and reactivity, like hypervigilance. And so when you look at the symptoms of PTSD and the information that Maya provided me with, it matches with her symptoms.
And when you matched up what DSM-5 said as to the signs and symptoms of PTSD, what did you find? And in other words, when you compare your findings with Maya Kowalski with what, and is DSM-5 essentially the Bible then for psychologists, psychiatrists in diagnosing?
Yes.
All right. So when you combined looking at the signs and symptoms of DSM-5 PTSD and Maya's symptoms observed and reported, what were your findings?
That she had PTSD, according to the DSM criteria.
What was significant in terms of the signs and symptoms that matched up?
She had a trauma. She was forcibly separated from her parents. She had, so that was the direct trauma. She had symptoms of hypervigilance. She had avoidance, for sure. She would try to avoid doctors and going over to St. Petersburg as much as possible. She had intrusive thoughts. So she had described to me when she, like I said, when she would watch any movies at the hospital, or she had a box at home of things that she sometimes would run across from the hospital. Negative, intrusive flashbacks, nightmares, memories would occur. She had sleep disturbance. She had daytime flashbacks. And those were the bulk of her symptoms.
And so how many of these symptoms does a patient have to have before a diagnosis of PTSD can be made?
You have to have them for over a month and the timeline of the symptoms, and then you have to have, I always look at it, one or more of the intrusion symptoms, which she had the nightmares, she had the daytime flashbacks. You have to have one or more of the avoidance symptoms, which she did, avoiding doctors, avoiding going to St. Petersburg. And then you have to have two or more of the altered cognition, which is just a fancy way of saying, like, you're looking at things differently. So blaming yourself for what occurred, even though she wasn't directly related to the trauma, she felt very guilty for having been in the hospital and for her mother's suicide, which she was not responsible for either. Diminished interest or participation in significant activities, she definitely had that, so that was the altered cognitions. And then you have to have two or more of the hyperarousal criteria. So she had the hypervigilance and sleep disturbance for sure.
All right, having made the then, what treatment did you prescribe, if any? Or what was the next step, if not?
Yeah, so the next step is talking with her dad just to confirm all of the information that I was seeing, that she described to me. He was also kind of seeing for her at home as well, and he did confirm that. And then talking about an overall plan, so I recommended therapy and medication.
So then, was she open to therapy at that point, or did she have barriers? Don't tell me what they are, but did she have barriers to that?
She did have barriers to going to therapy. She was not open to going to therapy. She said she had done it before, and the vast majority of people who do therapy are social workers, so she had some fears about going to see a social worker. We did have a psychologist at my former workplace that could have seen her, but she was hesitant about that, so she said she would consider it. Ultimately, she decided not to.
So did her father, Jack, confirm the symptoms that you had, the DSM-5 symptoms that you had initially identified?
Yes.
All right, and when was the next time that you saw her then?
So, the next time I saw her was December 1st, 2022.
All right, and so tell us what's going on then.
She had reported she had been having ups and downs in terms of her pain, because we always check in about that. The reason that I do that, and most psychiatrists do, the mind-body connection is very tight, so when you're doing something that makes you worried or anxious, you might have a stomach ache or a headache. And for her, with her CRPS, it could be a vicious cycle of her psychological state flaring up the CRPS symptoms. So we usually did check in about that, even though I wasn't treating her for her CRPS. So she said she was having some increased burning in her legs, more headaches, more leg weakness. She had tried to address that by going to the gym. She said schoolwork was very difficult for her. She mentioned anticipating the trial, and that was very upsetting to her. And she also talked about feeling guilty for being away from home. Her mother committed suicide in the home that she was living in, so she frequently was out of the house.
To the best of your knowledge, are the Kowalskis still living in that house?
As far as I know, yes.
All right. Now, can we look at, did you change any of the medications at this point, and what was her receptivity if you were trying?
So at this point, I had recommended the gabapentin. I took over prescribing the trazodone, which she said was a big relief for her. I took it over from her primary care doctor. because she wouldn't have to go into his office then. And this was her primary care doctor she had had for a long time, and she liked him and trusted him. She had seen him before the hospitalization, as far as I know, but she still felt immense relief with not having to go into his office. So I took over prescribing the trazodone. She was going to start the gabapentin and was considering an antidepressant with her father. And I referred her for neuropsychological testing to see if we could clarify the diagnosis of ADHD that I had suspected.
Now, and did she undertake that neuropsychological testing?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Did she undergo neuropsychological testing then?
Not with our facility. I much later learned that she did do neuropsychological testing while she was at Johns Hopkins, but I didn't have those records at the time.
And so then you had said that the combination of CRPS and the PTSD created additional problems for her. Without getting into the CRPS side of it too much, but can you explain about how those two interact?
Yeah, it could, with any chronic illness, and particularly CRPS, when you are under stress, you are more likely to have a flare of that illness. I treated CRPS patients while I was at doing my fellowship at Stanford and had seen actually quite a few. And psychiatry was typically called in to see patients to help them manage the stress associated with having that chronic illness.
Then let's turn, I want to move a little as quick as we can, given the time. And when was the next time you saw Maya?
The next time I saw her was December 29th, 2022.
And what happened there? It was the 27th or the 29th?
29th. She had tried the gabapentin and felt more depressed on it, and I told her if that had occurred, go ahead and stop the medication. There was no harm in abruptly stopping that medication. So she did, and she said it just took a while to feel like she was back to her normal self. Christmas had occurred. She said the holidays were hard without her mother, and the anniversary of her mother's suicide was coming up. She had reported feeling intermittent depression, and she had started working at Cracker Barrel, and that's when she saw the woman that looked like Kathy Beating.
Now, by this point, let's see how far for me, some 6 to 7 years, maybe 8 after the what happened to her at Johns Hopkins. By this time, had she made a friend who was a boy?
Yes.
And was that helpful for her?
Yes. She said she had a boyfriend, and he was nice to her, and she spent a lot of time out of the house, at his house with his family.
Now, did she describe to you, throughout, as you got to know her more, that she was spending as much time as possible away from her home?
She did, and she had talked to me about feeling guilty about that. But I spoke with her father about that as well. She still had rules and boundaries around that. She still had a curfew. But her father was comfortable with it because he knew it was at times hard for her to be at home.
All right, let's jump ahead then to the next visit you had.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us what's going on there with Maya.
That next visit was January 25th, 2023. She told me, we had started on Ritalin for her ADHD. Mm-hmm. But she had also told me that she was sick prior to seeing me. But she waited till the very last minute to go to urgent care because she did not want to see a doctor. She said she felt a panic attack coming on when she went to see that doctor, even though the interaction was very brief. She said their interaction was maybe, she just said 2 minutes, but she felt the panic rising. Her heart was racing. She said she teared up. She felt short of breath. She felt intense fear. And again, she felt very embarrassed and guilty for feeling that way.
All right. And so then, was she maintaining, getting better, getting worse? How did it appear to you at this point?
She was okay. Her pain had not improved substantially that she had described to me.
Did she describe that she had days when she would just lay in bed with pain, 3 days or so?
She did. She said she had days where, when the pain was worse, she
No
would
objection
primarily
on the
stay
leading.
in bed all day. And when it was not as bad, she would do her online schoolwork.
Now, let's go to the next, if we could.
Oh.
Next visit.
She also mentioned to me
Yes.
that she felt like the job was not a good fit, and she was considering looking for another job. And as a psychiatrist, I felt like that was directly related to having run into people, having a fear of running into people, because just the month before she had ran into a woman that looked like Kathy Beatty. So she was considering leaving that job at that time.
And did it come to your attention that she in fact left that job soon thereafter?
After this session, Maya did not come back to see me.
Okay.
But I did learn that she did stop that job.
All right. So Maya then did not make the next session.
Correct.
And was there a, well, did she appear to be benefiting from the sessions?
She did. She seemed to be opening up more and more. She would always show up on time. We had developed a good rapport, and she was still considering therapy and potentially considering adding another medication, and she had scheduled the neuropsychological evaluation.
Did she have concerns over her psychological, psychiatric records being used against her at some point?
Yeah, objection, Your Honor. Legal basis. On the legal basis we discussed earlier.
That's not the question.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Do you know why Maya was concerned over staying with her psychological, psychiatric treatment?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. So now, how many times had you seen Maya?
I saw Maya 4 times.
And is this sufficient to make a diagnosis on this child?
Yes.
Do you have, and let's talk about depression, because I'd like to know what the DSM-5 criteria are for depression and the matchup, if you will, of the symptoms.
Sure. For a major depressive disorder, you have to have a feeling of hopelessness or helplessness or decreased interest in activities that you typically find enjoyment in for a period of 2 weeks or longer, combined with other symptoms. So insomnia, sleep disturbance, or sleeping too much, low energy levels typically, poor focus, poor motivation, decreased appetite, or for most of us, eating too much, and then what we call anhedonia, like I said, decreased interest in typical activities.
Well, did her symptoms match up to clinical depression?
Yes.
Now, do you have an opinion, based upon your background, training, and experience, and to a reasonable medical probability, as to whether Maya Kowalski suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder?
She does.
And do you have an opinion, based upon your background, training, and experience, and to a reasonable medical probability, whether Maya Kowalski suffers from chronic depression?
She does, in very much a way that we see adolescents express depression, intermittent chronic depression, yes.
Now, do you have an opinion based upon your background, training, and experience to a reasonable medical probability as to whether these diagnoses will cause or contribute to problems for Maya in the future?
Yes, they will.
Now, let's talk about as Maya goes on, and follow up to that. Have you followed PTSD patients for
Yes.
before?
Yes, I have.
So, two questions. The first is, what is she at risk for? And then we'll talk about probabilities.
So with PTSD, she's at risk for difficulties with each of these diagnoses. One of the main things that's added in is that you have difficulty in your day-to-day functioning. So we all can experience depressive moments or some of these symptoms for short periods of time, but still function well. But she does have problems in her day-to-day functioning. So in the future, she can have problems with relationship formation and bonds. She can have trouble holding a job down and keeping it.
This is right on the line of what they've ruled on already.
At her age, she should be applying to colleges. Not everybody does, but she certainly has the ability to.
Has she yet, to the best of your knowledge?
When I saw her, she was not, and she was not making any plans for the future. She said she didn't like to future plan because she felt like it was futile. That if you made future plans, they could get easily disrupted. And she's going to potentially have a lot of problems in terms of
careful here. There comes an
when
objection.
if she decides to have children in the future, the health care of those children and her own health care. She could potentially avoid doctors to the point where things that could be intervened and treated easily, that she does not go and get those things treated.
Do you have an opinion based upon your background, training, and experience into a reasonable medical probability as to whether the symptoms that you saw and from your experience following patients, whether Maya Kowalski's ability to earn money in the future will be diminished?
Objection. Lack of affiliation, undisclosed opinion.
Can you approach, please?
My ears, please. Audio dude, thank you. Okay, we're flirting along the line. There was the defense, or sorry, the plaintiff is not supposed to bring up anything about loss of consortium for Maya, which goes into her ability to have intimate relationships, or build intimate relationships with people. That they're not supposed to go there. So they're right on the edge. So they're being very careful here. But he's dancing along this line. I think the judge is going to ask him to move along. Here, the specific objection had to do with Maya's ability to earn money in the future, which is an interesting approach. Let's see. I've got burner phone messages going like crazy. This is from. It's always good. I got one from my lawyer. This is from my lawyer on the West Coast instead of Texas. It's good to have multiple lawyers. This is an alert of the Recovery Addict broadcasting system. The federal government may have forgotten about you, but those addicts in chat did not. If there's an emergency, we'll make sure that you're contacted so you can take shelter, outrun zombies, or run around screaming and flailing your arms. This is to notify you of any federal, state, local, and tribal territorial disasters. Alerts or notices to the public. As of right now, there are no zombie outbreaks or other major disasters requiring that you stop streaming, so press on. This is a test of the Recovery Addict emergency broadcast system. Thank you very much for that, Nicole. That's exciting. Let's see, we've got the counts. Let's see. Big Mike, thanks for keeping me honest on the objection count. I was missing a couple of those. Redford, welcome to the jury. Good to have you here. Love the truck. That looks awesome. Appreciate you being a supporter. Glad to have you here make sure you take your seat on the front row. Got a bunch of messages. Oh my goodness, why am I so far behind? Fried pickles, those are always good. Save that for later. Let's see, I played Happy Birthday clip for Jean, my 100-year-old patient, yesterday, and she loved it. She said, thank you for making her day special. That is awesome. That is wonderful. Thank you very much for asking for it. I'm glad we could help out a little bit. That's 100 years old. That's an accomplishment. I'm glad we could. That's the oldest person I've ever sung to. Let's see, we've got, that was a news of an active shooter in a different area.
Objection is sustained.
Ooh, sustained. Can't talk about the money, apparently.
Now,
Can't talk about her loss of
will Maya
ability to earn.
benefit from psychological care in the future?
Yes.
And what, if you could, from what you had recommended to her father and otherwise, would you recommend in terms of the care that Maya should receive if we can get her to go back?
Same objection.
That one she can answer.
I would recommend regular therapy and continued medication management. So regular therapy with a psychologist, probably not a social worker, and medication management with a child psychiatrist.
So basically lifelong psychiatric care.
Weekly therapy, and then medication management would just depend on how she's responding. So anywhere from weekly to monthly, it just depends.
Is there a basis in terms of an average from your background and training and experience for someone in Maya Kowalski's position with CRPS and the post-traumatic and depression aggravating it?
You mean a length of time that she would be in therapy?
I'm thinking more on average, how many times a year for this, if you can say. I mean, is it just 52? Like once
Same objection.
Overruled. You can answer that one.
Oh, yeah. So that all depends on, how she is doing in that therapy. But I have found that people with significant adverse childhood trauma. So when we think about childhood trauma, the effects of that tend to last throughout your life. And so she would need therapy on and off throughout her life, if not continuously.
Now, this type of trauma that she has, can you tell the jury how it affects the way Maya will view the world going forward?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. You can answer that.
So trauma generally kind of colors the way that you see the world. And so and I'm sure members of the jury have seen this, but I see it on a regular basis in terms of you kind of look at the world differently, a little more hostile, a little more frightening. And so it's going to affect how she views her world and interacts with people within it. And so it's going to be a lifetime struggle for her.
Is Maya given a Hobson's choice then about attending the treatment and having it cause her concern and not having the treatment and having her conditions get worse?
Object to the reading.
Going to sustain that objection.
What, if any, problems does Maya have between having are you aware that Maya Kowalski has had, and on at least 2 occasions, her CRPS activated by a psychiatric event?
Yes.
And so, in this situation, this interaction, can you explain to the jury the problems for Maya moving forward?
Not having her psychological issues treated could certainly worsen her CRPS symptoms because of that mind-body connection that I mentioned earlier. And so that could cause further impairment for her down the line physically as well.
Did you get a chance to review the neuropsychological testing that was done while she was at Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital?
I did.
And was that performed by a Johns Hopkins doctor or a contractor?
It was performed by Dr. Lewis and my
Sustained.
Is it true that with neuropsychological programs testing that it is the interpretation of the data that is more important than simply the data?
Yes, so the reason that I actually asked to look at the neuropsychological evaluation was because she did not get the neuropsychological evaluation done with us. And I wanted to see if my suspicion of ADHD was correct. So generally, a neuropsychological evaluation is when a neuropsychologist does certain tests to look at the way your brain processes information. So it can give you a lot of data. You get scores on certain testing, and then when you look at those scores, they fit a certain profile. So people with ADHD typically have a low processing speed and a low working memory, in contrast to their higher IQ. And for her IQ was extremely high. Her working memory numbers were low. Her processing speed was low. Combined with the clinical information that I had, that confirmed for me the diagnosis of ADHD. Dr. Lewis interpreted it differently, however.
And so then, as Maya grows older, this intersection of her CRPS and her depression and PTSD, will each, to the best of your knowledge, aggravate the other?
Yes.
Your witness. Subject property owner.
Okay, we're going to see. They did not make many objections during this. Let's see how hard they hit this this witness to discredit her.
So,
first name is Scott.
And I just wanted to ensure I understand this. You're up in the Jacksonville area?
Correct.
Okay. You've never seen Maya in person, correct?
I have not seen her in person.
And your involvement in this case is because Mr. Anderson asked you to become involved?
He asked me to see her as a patient, but said he would do his best to keep me out of coming to any court-involved proceedings. And I was hoping that would be the case.
How did that work for you?
Well, I didn't call you here today, so don't be mad at me, but Mr. Anderson did. What is he paying you to be here today?
Standard rate.
Which is what?
For testimonies can go is $600 per hour.
Okay, so
just for the testimony.
I understand. And so in the connection with Mr. Anderson, so I understand you live in the same community as him?
I live in the same area.
Okay. And
not in the same
and your children used to go to school with his children, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
I forgot it's on the microphone.
So let me talk to you a little bit about some of your evaluations with Maya.
Okay.
I'm going to just walk through. There's 4 appointments total, true?
Correct.
Okay, so let me start with the first one from a time period. It starts, the first appointment with Maya was over telehealth on October 27th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You have a section called History of Present Illness.
That's right.
Okay. That's what the patient, being Maya, is telling you. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I do also, so as I'm seeing patients, I'm typing because of the constraints of insurance, et cetera, and time, and having to see other patients. So I do add my interpretations in as I'm typing as well.
Okay. But in terms of what you typed into the record,
mm-hmm.
on October 27th, 2022, you typed in, quote,
objection.
I'll show her the record. Okay, I'll show her the record.
Yeah, well, why don't you show her as opposed to...
Sure. We're at trial exhibit. It's actually at Hench Key 16.
Yes.
Let's not put it up. Are we just going to go hand it to her?
I have a copy.
Do you have a copy of it?
I do.
Okay, so I'll ask you. The first, halfway down the page, you see where it says patient's CRPS symptoms? We're in remission until 1 to 2 months ago?
I do.
Okay. And that's what you took in terms of a history from Maya on this day, that her symptoms were in remission until a month or 2 ago, correct?
Correct. And then later on, she did clarify she always feels that baseline pain.
Well, let me ask you about that. You said, and you ask about that in comparison to how she used to be before, because you took a history that said that a flare can last 20 minutes to 24 hours now, but years ago the pain used to last for days. True?
True.
And in other words, from her prior history, meaning before she went to All Children's Hospital, her CRPS was much worse than when you were seeing her now. True?
From what she said, yes.
Okay, so let me ask you about the next page.
But it's unclear to me why her symptoms improved.
Okay, and in fairness to you, I think you told this jury, you're not here to treat her CRPS.
Correct.
Okay, and in terms of what therapy or medications or lack of medications that Maya may have had after she got out of All Children's and what helped her improve, you're not here to tell the jury one way or the other. That's not your purview, correct?
Well, I can comment on her psychological state and what I think improved that.
Hey, Meanie, I need you to drop it, or we're going to time you out for 24 hours. I need that dropped. That conversation is not appropriate.
Yeah,
the way you're
I can
addressing
comment
it.
on her psychological state and what she reported to me and what I think improved that.
Okay. I was talking in terms of her physical symptoms, in terms of why her CRPS was in remission. That's not something that you are here to discuss, correct?
Not fully, except there is that mind-body connection, so that's why I always ask about her symptoms in my notes.
I think you told the jury you do have some experience with CRPS from your training.
Correct.
And you would agree that the treatment of CRPS includes psychological counseling, correct?
It does.
Okay. Let me ask you about some of your statements on the second page of your report.
Yes.
You took a history of medications. Do you see where it says current medications?
I do.
What medications was Maya on when she saw you on October 27th, 2022?
She was on trazodone and Claritin for allergies as needed.
Anything other than those two medications?
No.
Was there any significant family history in terms of psychiatric history that you recorded?
Maya reported to me that she thought her mother had depression, and she thought her brother had ADHD.
On the next page, you have it looks like you took a history, it looks like you did a review of her systems, is that right?
I did.
Okay. Under the constitutional section, well, first, what is constitutional?
How you look in general, just overall.
And what did you record?
Stable weight, and that she was in no acute distress.
Under the GI section, what is GI?
Gastrointestinal. So, review of systems, if I may,
yes,
is required in all of our notes as psychiatrists as an insurance requirement. So we have to have a review of all your medical systems in addition to your psychiatric notes. So we look at, or we ask about, in the case of telemedicine since COVID, symptoms like related to your nose and throat, cardiovascular system, your heart, your lungs, your skeletal system, etc.
Right, and it probably was obvious, but sometimes I'm not as obvious as I should be. Since this is telehealth and you're not doing a hands-on assessment, you're relying on Maya to give you this information. True?
I am. I'm also constrained by time, so usually I get it in the history of present illness. Sometimes I don't always update it on my review of systems.
Okay. Well, what you did record on your review of systems from GI, what was it?
No nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or constipation.
Okay. What did you record on your review of systems for musculoskeletal?
No muscle, joint pain, or swelling, but I should have updated it to match my history of present illness.
In the integumentary, what is integumentary?
Skin.
What was reported to you regarding her skin?
No rash or cuts.
For example, if Maya told you I'm having lesions, that's where you would report it, true?
Correct.
In terms of neurologic, what did you record?
I put no dizziness or gait problems, but again, that was my error. I should have updated it to match the history of present illness.
Sorry, are you finished? I didn't mean to cut you off, I promise.
Oh, I didn't notice you cut me off because I was looking down. But it should have matched my history of present illness.
Okay. Maya did not report to any problems walking, did she?
Not at that time. She described in terms of neurologic, the burning sensation, the pins and needles pains, the hot and cold in her extremities, and her legs feeling weak.
Mm-hmm. But in terms of any difficulty walking, is that correct, that she didn't report to any difficulty walking?
Not at that time.
Okay. On the next page, you have your diagnoses. Do you see those?
On page 18?
It's actually on page 19. Did I skip a page on it?
I don't have a page 19.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're Bates marked at the bottom. Are yours, or you have your original records? Yours aren't Bates marked. So,
yes, I have my regular records.
Gotcha. I'm looking at a series of diagnoses below the vitals in your electronic medical record. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Are we on the same page?
Yes.
It looks like you have a diagnosis of depression. Is that right?
Correct.
You were asked by Mr. Anderson whether you were aware of any prior diagnoses of depression. You were not aware of any?
Not at that time that I saw her.
Okay. I'd like to show you what's in evidence, Joint Exhibit 1037-001.
Okay.
And this is an evidence?
It's a joint exhibit under your evidence.
Yes, it can be shown.
I'll represent to you this is a record from Eagles Wing Counseling dated November 9th, 2015. Under the DSM-5 diagnoses, it says...
Hang on, objection, and can we take this down and approach?
Objection, take it down and approach. Okay, this is in evidence, so I'm not sure how he's... If it's already... It was a joint exhibit, if I remember correctly what they just said. It's a joint exhibit that was just displayed already in evidence, and now he's objecting. Debbie, my first name is spelled with 2 T's because I'm a true Scot. Oh, I'm just kidding. Meaning banana. I'm not sure. I don't think Maya's going to be on today. I don't think so. I don't think. I think really the plaintiff's going to put her on probably later in trial, like way later, towards the end. But at the same time, they might have to move her up in the order because there are some items that they want in evidence. They want to question other people about that they can't get in until Maya testifies. So we're gonna have to. They're gonna have to play a game, and they might not be able to use her as their big, what is it called when the pinch hitter that comes in and knocks the grand slam in the baseball game. They might not be able to use her at the very end just for a big final 1-2 punch of their presentation because they need that evidence in so they can use it in other situations.
You may continue, and you can redisplay the document.
Thank you. Do you see in this document that as of at least November 9th, 2015, there's a DSM-5 diagnosis code of depression / medical condition?
I see that.
Okay. Let me ask you about another document. Actually, I'm going to talk to you a little more about
that. Predated the hospital, right?
You can take that down.
Depression predated the hospital?
Next time that you saw Maya was for your second appointment on November 7th,
That's
2022.
it, designated hitter.
I'm sorry, no, December 1st, 2022.
Yes,
okay.
December 1st, 2022.
Plaintiff.
Again, this was telehealth?
Correct.
in the history of present illness section, you recorded that Maya, well, why don't you tell me what you reported in terms of whether she was having more or less of the burning pain?
She said she was having ups and downs with her pain. The week that I was seeing her, she said her pain had not been too bad, but the week prior, she said she was having increased burning pain in her legs. She had more headaches, and she also felt leg weakness.
Was Maya reporting to you whether she was able to work out on the treadmill?
Yeah, she said she had attempted to exercise on the treadmill.
Did Maya report to you whether she was able to do weight training?
Yep, she said she had done some weight training with, I remember this fairly vividly. She said just with her glutes. So she thought the machine where you exercised your glutes was hilarious. And that was the only weight training she had done.
Sure. And just a very general question. In your conversations with her, she was having a normal, healthy relationship with her boyfriend, true?
She described having a good relationship with her boyfriend. We did not get into the details so that I would classify it as normal.
Okay. And again, I don't want to pry any more than I need to.
Did they just open the door?
On this, but from your basic conversation on this, her relationship with the boyfriend, there was nothing unusual to you?
Not that she noted.
Okay. On the next page, it says that... sorry?
It was a little unusual that she was actually at his home so much.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that is typical for a 16-year-old.
Got it. But in terms of her ability to form a relationship, that was, from your perspective as her counselor, normal with him?
Her doctor. As far as I know, but we hadn't gotten more to develop more of a report to really get into that just yet. But up to that point, as far as I knew, yes.
Okay. So as of December 1st, which is the date of this report, on the next page, according to her father and her, she was now working at Cracker Barrel?
That's correct.
Okay. Did she report any physical restrictions with her job at Cracker Barrel?
She did not.
In terms of her medications, which are listed on the same page, is it still the same too? Trazodone and Claritin? Okay.
Yes, sorry.
And just moving things along, the next page you again go through your review of systems, is that right?
That's correct.
What did you record for constitutional?
No acute distress, and that her weight was stable. This is a weight that she reported to me.
Okay. In terms of her skin, how was it?
She did not report any rash or cuts.
In terms of musculoskeletal, what did you record?
I reported no muscle or joint pain or swelling, but again, I should have updated to match my history of present illness.
And this was in your plan, did you have any recommendations with regard to exercise?
Yes, I encourage her to try weightlifting in different forms and maybe seek out a female trainer potentially to work with at the gym.
And then for the next appointment, the 3rd of 4, this would be December 29th, 2022?
Yes.
Okay. The report here at the top, what did Maya report to you on her interview?
She said that she had a good Christmas with her family, that she asked for a nose piercing and a few more ear piercings.
Let me just ask you a question about that. Did Maya report to you any pain associated with either any of the piercings?
No, I didn't ask specifically though, and typically those cartilaginous parts of your body, you don't feel a lot of pain when you get those piercings.
Okay. In terms of her pain flares, were they better or worse?
She said she had had one significant pain flare where she was in bed for a day.
And for the other 29 days of the month, no reports, correct?
She said she continued to have that baseline pain.
Where does it say that?
So I asked her, does she always have pain? I can't remember which note it's in, but she said she always has a baseline pain. So
I got it. It's just not in this note, correct?
Correct.
This note does talk about Cracker Barrel waitressing now.
Yes.
Going on a little more than a month. How is that going?
She said she liked it overall, but she didn't like the shift leader on Mondays because she had yelled at her. She was stressed about going to work on Mondays. So we talked about maybe rearranging her schedule so she didn't have to encounter that shift leader. And she also told me that was when one of those days when she was at work, she had served a woman who looked very much like the social worker from the hospital, Kathy Beatty.
Did Maya report to any physical restrictions at work?
She did not.
In terms of medications, it looks like you started Ritalin, is that correct?
At the end of that visit. So, yes, I had started the Ritalin. So, ADHD is a clinical diagnosis, meaning you can make the diagnosis based on the symptoms that the person is reporting to you. And since she hadn't gotten the neuropsych testing done and was still reporting a lot of struggles with focus and concentration, we decided to go ahead and start the Ritalin.
And the Ritalin was for the ADHD?
I'm not talking about the SA.
Yes,
the door open for the SA.
You're okay. Again, on this,
talking about possible
review of systems,
consortium claims.
How is Maya doing in terms of her reported systems?
The same in terms of what I documented. Again, I should have updated my review of systems to match with the history of present illness.
What you have documented here is no acute distress, correct?
Correct.
And what you have documented here is no nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or constipation, correct?
Correct.
And what you have documented here is on skin, no rashes or cuts, correct?
Correct.
And what you have documented here is no muscle or joint pain or swelling, correct?
Correct.
Let me talk to you a little bit about, you mentioned a diagnosis of PTSD.
Yes.
You did mention that you reviewed a report from Dr. Lewis. Is that right?
Yes, I reviewed that after Maya stopped seeing me.
Okay. Did you see in Dr. Lewis's report?
I'm going to say it like they spell it, Matthew.
Severe anxiety and
Consortium.
depressive response when learning that the ketamine infusion in Mexico had a 50% chance of killing me and causing my parents
There it is,
so much
consortium.
pain.
Consortium.
I did see that.
Okay. Did you also see in the report that Maya presented with evidence of extensive clinical interview evidence of DSM-5 adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depressed mood, moderate to severe?
I did, but I found Dr. Lewis's report. I was concerned about it because it had, in my opinion, a lot of confirmation bias associated with it, meaning he was highlighting symptoms that were reported to him from the primary team associated with Munchausen's. He was highlighting sort of a lot of those concerns, and he even mentioned that she could have a history of ADHD. She could have ADHD based on her scores, but that she had no clinical manifestations of ADHD, but he had not interviewed her parents. He hadn't interviewed any of her or done any rating scales with them or done any rating scales with her teachers.
But you agreed with the diagnosis of ADHD eventually, correct?
Yeah, he didn't make the diagnosis of ADHD, though. He overlooked it.
Okay. You found ADHD in addition. But in terms of his comment that, well, it wasn't his comment. According to his report, Maya told him that she had anxiety and depressive response when discussing the ketamine coma that the jury saw earlier today, correct?
He did report that.
In terms of your last report, your last visit on, I guess, pull it up. The last time you saw Maya was on January 25th, 2023.
That's correct.
Was the Ritalin helping?
She said it was. With her focus and attention, with specifically with school and being able to get homework done.
Was she still working at Cracker Barrel?
She was, but she was considering leaving that job because she didn't feel like it was a good fit.
Okay. And just in terms of a time frame, this is about 2.5 months at least that she's been working at Cracker Barrel?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. And then in terms of your review of systems, any change from, well, let me just walk you through it real briefly, Doctor. Constitutional, did you record any acute distress?
No acute distress.
How about her gastrointestinal exam?
I did record that she had lost about 5 pounds, but no acute distress. Gastrointestinal, no nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or constipation.
Musculoskeletal, what did you find?
No muscle, joint pain, or swelling.
Integumentary skin, what did you find?
No rash or cuts.
One moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
They're going to approach really quickly, and I'm going to do a little switcheroo. Give me just 1 second. Box source. Ooh, phone's ringing. Hang on 1 second. My things are going nuts here. Hold tight. I'm trying to do something on my phone, and the call's coming in. Hey.
Jessica?
Hey, Jessica. We've got like 10 seconds. Oh, no, I hung up. I tried to answer. Sorry about that. We just have a second here, so we probably don't have time for a call. But we got a message from. Let's see. I'm just gonna assume that if you send a picture to the burner phone, it's for me to share for the world. I think that's a pretty safe assumption, right? Just give me just 1 second. Let's see if we can pull this one in. Recent downloads. There it is. Drag this guy in. Let's see, what do we need? Right there. Okay, here's a little picture for those that like to get to know people. This is, let's see, switch to camera 2 or 3. Okay. This is our Matthew Harris on the left and Ricky Watson on the right. A little meet up in real life. Both larger than life personalities out of Texas. So Matthew Harris says Ricky Watson is just as much of a Southern gentleman in real life as he is on the phone. Awesome. Good to see both of you and put a face to the name in some cases. I think I've seen both of your pictures, but some of you, this might be the first time to meet Matthew Harris. One of our great friends of the channel, Matthew Harris, there's as a lawyer and good friend of the channel, and Ricky on the right in the cowboy hat. Awesome. Good to see you both. Oops. Okay. That said,
Redirect Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
We're gonna switch that. Hang on.
I can find it.
Redirect Mr. Anderson.
There we go. We're gonna leave it like that.
I can find it.
If I can find it. Had to warp back in time a little bit.
In that report from Eagle's Wings, do you note the date?
Could you say that one more time, please?
The Eagle's Wing counseling report, where it said she had some depression. Did you note the date?
I saw the year. It was 2015.
Mm-hmm. And from the history that Maya gave you, did that appear to be right in the middle of her first go-round with CRPS and immediately prior to going to Mexico for the ketamine procedure?
As far as I know, yes. She also, the way that the therapist coded it, she coded it as depression and anxiety secondary to a medical condition. So it was her view from the diagnosis that the depression and anxiety was associated with the CRPS.
Now, can you distinguish that kind of diagnosis from your diagnosis of chronic depression and PTSD? Is this more situational?
Based on what I saw that came up on the screen, yes. And so I saw her many years later, and my diagnosis was that her depression was somewhat independent of her CRPS. They are tied together, but I chose that diagnosis. And then the PTSD was directly related to the stay at Hopkins.
Your diagnosis of ADHD, can you tell the jury whether that is a major finding or is that I don't know what you call it.
We call it an incidental finding. But that is the reason, Maya wasn't in general comfortable seeing doctors, but she was having so much trouble with her focus. That is why she decided to see me. And so I did want to focus on what she wanted to address as well. You can't just kind of willy-nilly do what you want as the doctor. You have to focus on what the patient would like to address too. So we did address her focus and attention as well.
So the ADHD is not a connected, pre-existing or any condition that affects the PTSD or chronic depression?
Not in particular, no. I just had brought it back to Dr. Lewis's report because I found that his overlooking of that diagnosis, especially associated with the numbers, was concerning based on the report I read.
Thank you.
Any further follow-up?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Members of the jury, do any of you have any questions?
Yes. I don't have the Zoom up. I can't see the jury anyway, even on Zoom. But it looks like we do have some questions from the jury.
That's the attorney's.
Okay, let me see. I'm trying to sync some things up here. Just 1 second. Boom. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Boom. Okay. Just like that. One try. I linked up two feeds to within a millisecond of each other with a single attempt. I'm getting good at this. It's funny watching everybody say what they're going to offer Matthew Harris if he visits and meets up in their state. It looks like he's got an offer of a sandwich in Pittsburgh. We've got a coffee in Denver, and Rosie in Tucson says, "I'll buy you a horse." So a sandwich, a coffee, and a horse. That pretty much completes the trifecta, Matthew, of all the things you could want if you visit somewhere. Get a horse, a drink, and a sandwich to go. Yes, we do have questions. We all have questions, says Larry Leaney. I love the jury questions and the insight. Oh, my goodness. Some of these are very insightful questions. I think we definitely have at least one juror who if they're not a true crime fan, they have some legal expertise. We have another one that has probably some personal experience regarding medications and addiction. Preferably, I'm talking about prescription medications and the addictive prescription medications or something like that, because we've had a lot of questions dealing with that. Can you ride the horse to Texas? Texas is big. You can ride it to Texas, but it's a long way to ride across it. Matthew Harris is popular. Can you blame him? The guy's like amazing lawyer, just a great guy all around, and he dresses to the nines at all times. If I ever meet Matthew Harris, you can tell us apart because I'm the one who's underdressed for the occasion. Let's see. By the way, Matthew, I think tomorrow you've got another video coming out. Do you want to give us a little insight as to what the topic is on your video that you're dropping tomorrow on YouTube, assuming it is coming out tomorrow? We love Matt Harris. We do. He's awesome. We love Nicole Goodman as well. Two of our favorite lawyers right there, Nicole Goodman and Matthew Harris. Good friends of the channel, been around for a long time. Any offers for Goodman Law Firm? I think if you want to meet up with Goodman Law Firm, you have to bring your own motorcycle, and then you can go ride the canyons or something. Is that right, Nicole? Teresa says, I'd give him a cheesehead hat from Wisconsin. Cold beer from Texarkana, if you get the cultural reference. I'm not sure if I got that. Maybe I said something bad. think Matthew, did he step out? I'm not sure if he's typing right now or not. How rude of Matthew to have actual legal work to do during the day when we're live streaming. Yes, definitely. Love the Harley. Okay, I'm trying to follow all the conversations here at the same time, and I'm not doing very well. All right, they're considering the questions from the jury, and we've progressively gotten more and more questions. I wonder if the jury is learning from the questions that they have asked, what sort of questions are allowed to be admitted or not, because they haven't been able to hear the response from the judge. They haven't been able to hear the objections to the question. Like if the plaintiff asked a question of a witness, there would be an objection and the grounds for that, and the plaintiff then knows why that question is not allowed. The jury doesn't get that benefit. The questions, the objections are all just heard and ruled on with the white noise machine running, and that's it. Ella Cole says, there is a correlation between ADHD and spectrum disorder and the likes of joint disorders. I have hypermobility, and it's linked to my ADHD. I had, as a kid, I bounced off the walls.
Members of the jury, if I could have you go out for just a couple of moments. This will be very quick. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation.
When the judge says this will be very quick, what I hear in my head is a doctor saying, now this is going to sting just a little bit, or you're going to feel some pressure. It probably won't be very quick. But anyway, as a kid, I was bouncing off the walls, and the doctor recommended Ritalin. My mom got the prescription and I think gave me like 1 or 2 doses of it. And then I spent the afternoon staring at the wall, looking at the lines in the wallpaper or something. Okay, and she's like, okay, that's not my son.
Okay, if I ask
we're done.
Questions? Okay. Doctor.
Yes.
Ooh, a proffer.
I want to hear what your answer is going to be to the following 2 questions.
Okay.
If your recommendation for Maya's treatment is weekly therapy sessions due to her intense childhood trauma, why were your sessions with Maya only held monthly?
Because mine focused primarily on medication management, and I did some supportive therapy, but I felt like she needed separate sessions with the therapist, and she had declined.
Okay, next question. Why hasn't Maya been seen by you since January 25, 2023?
Once she found out my records would be subpoenaed, she stopped seeing me.
Ooh, that one's not going to be allowed.
They're
going to approach again. They're going to argue. That'll be interesting. Because okay, first of all, I'm not buying that the plaintiff really thought that this was going to be a safe harbor for Maya. He's like, hey, I want you to come in and help Maya, help my client.
Certain that they were going to be.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure, because it seems like that was a play. Because he's the one that called her. He's the one that called her as a witness. Do you think this is a dirty trick where he knew what would happen? He knew the rules. He knew that if his witness or his I guess customer, oh my goodness, my head just lost it. If his client had a doctor that was treating her for some of these things and asking these questions, definitely the defense was going to subpoena that and get that information. It was going to come out, and then whatever was told in confidence would then be available to all of them. Do you think it was done purposefully? Yes, he called her because they were claiming Maya was better. Had to call her because defense was going to use her records. So so defense offered to basically drop this whole witness. If you'll, we'll get rid of it if you'll drop this whole witness. But defense offered, if you'll drop her off your witness list, this whole thing will be gone. We won't use this. Okay, I believe that's what the offer was we heard earlier. And the plaintiff said, no, we're calling her. So there's something they wanted her to bring in, even over the whatever damage the defense was able to do, whatever information they were able to gain. I think I took 2 doses of Ritalin in my life. And I vaguely remember that day. I was very young, but I vaguely remember that day. There's only two things I remember from living, well, three things I remember from living in that house, and that was in a little house my parents built when we were just a tiny growing family. I was a young kid. Never mind, there's more, but let me tell you three main things. I remember planting an apple seed, letting it sprout, and having my brother rip it out of the ground because he said that the roots would destroy the house. So I remember that. I remember the Ritalin sitting in my room, very still, and just being very content to not do anything. And then I remember running in the kitchen and running in front of somebody who's carrying some boiling hot tomato soup in a bowl, carrying it to the table, and tripping them and getting it poured down my back. That was not a good day. But holy cow, aloe vera. And we're not talking like the stuff from the bottle. We're talking the real stuff, like harvest the plant, split it open, spread it on my back. The next day, there was no burns. It was amazing, amazing, amazing. There's some other memories, like we raised rabbits for meat. That was interesting. And so we'd find a favorite one and name it, and then one day the rabbit would be gone, and we'd have more chicken on the table. It's funny how that worked. We had chickens there too. I was the only one that dared to collect the eggs. Fun memories, but I don't know why we're talking about that. It's probably the Ritalin. The Ritalin took me all the way back there to when I was, I was like 6 then. That's going way back, way back. Okay, so if you replay that part, Anderson says they agreed she was going to be safe haven, and then defense said they'd call her violating that agreement. Yeah, but if you listen to the judge, Rodina, the judge said, no, that's what you said. I never made that agreement. You said I would like to do that, and the judge said, no, we're not going to do that. And then supposedly Anderson felt that he had some sort of agreement with the defense, but there was no ruling from the judge that this was going to be the case, that she was going to be off limits in a safe haven for Maya. Colleen, they have not addressed Facebook yet. I mean, beyond just what we've heard already, that it was Mr. Shapiro's wife that posted something about this. They haven't gone there. I wonder if it will take another, dare we say, incident to bring that to the forefront. I think the plaintiff is probably using that and holding that until they're in a tight spot. And then when they get hit with something, they're going to bring that out and play and say, but, Your Honor, they did this. And so they'll sort of have an offsetting penalty, so to speak. How did the tomato soup end up on your back? Well, I dove in front of the person who was carrying a full bowl of tomato soup.
Last question about why hasn't Maya been seen since January 25th, 2023?
Yes.
If you could answer it just the way you answered it to me, to the jury, without further explanation or embellishment. Can you do that?
I can do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's bring back the jury.
Okay. So here's what's happening. Plaintiff is hoping that she goes a little bit off script on that.
Sure, is that right?
The rabbit thing, we just couldn't understand where our rabbits were going, where the food was coming from.
Hey everyone, let's please be seated. Members of the jury, I want to confirm that since you were away 3 minutes ago, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves, did not do any investigation, and received no information. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you've not seen any media reports?
No.
And no one's approached you. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Doctor, the jury has some questions. I'm going to just kind of go through them one at a time. Doctor, I believe you mentioned while at a hospital you were often requested to help a patient cope with CRPS. This would assume a patient had or was diagnosed with CRPS already by a prior doctor. Have you ever been summoned to observe a patient to either confirm or disprove a patient has CRPS symptoms?
That's a good question. No, I was typically consulted once the diagnosis was already made by a neurologist.
Okay. Now, the next question. What percentage of females 18 to 25 are diagnosed with depression or generalized anxiety?
If we're looking in the U.S., what percentage? Or what percentage of my patients?
It says what percentage of females 18 to 25. The question doesn't say whether in the U.S. or in your practice, so why don't you give us the U.S. if you know it.
This sounds pro-defense, this question.
I would just be ballparking it in the U.S. I haven't looked at those statistics for a while. I would probably say maybe 60 to 70%. I would have to double check that, though.
So most.
Okay. Though Maya's situation is tragic and unique, the diagnosis is no longer uncommon, and that's the CRPS, the depression diagnosis. Is that correct?
Oh, could you repeat that one more time, please?
Though Maya's situation is tragic and unique, the diagnosis is no longer uncommon.
Of depression?
And I think it's depression and generalized anxiety is what the question was asking.
No, I wouldn't. Yes, they're no longer uncommon.
Okay. And how common is adult ADHD versus pediatric ADHD?
Oh, that one's a harder question to answer. We don't have a lot of studies comparing both of those. So it has to do with also kind of social influences too. So there are a lot of adults that have went undiagnosed as children. So it depends on what generation we're looking at as well, like what percentage between the two. So it would just depend on the age.
Okay. The next question, if your recommendation for Maya's treatment is weekly therapy sessions due to her intense childhood trauma, why were your sessions with Maya only held monthly?
Also a good question. So there are not a lot of child psychiatrists in the country, and the bulk of my time is taken up doing medication management. So the way that we do the model now, as opposed to many, many years ago, is that the psychiatrist will do the medication management portion, and we'll have a licensed therapist, that can be a psychologist, a social worker, a licensed mental health counselor, to do the therapy portion. So I was seeing her for the medication management piece and did encourage her to start therapy. She was very hesitant to start therapy.
Here comes the big one. Ready? This is important.
And the last question, why hasn't Maya been seen by you since January 25, 2023?
Once she found out my records might be subpoenaed, she stopped seeing me.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, any further questions?
The depression, the generalized anxiety depression that so many women from 18 to 25 have, can you explain the difference between the event-specific depression that Maya Kowalski has?
Yeah, it's hard to untangle her major depressive disorder from her PTSD. So both really do go together, and with that diagnosis, it has to impact her functioning in daily life, and so her daily functioning is impacted in terms of her depressive episodes, her intermittent depressive episodes. She'll miss school, she'll withdraw from activity, she won't do the things that you envision a typical 16-year-old doing.
I guess the question is, but for this event, would Maya have had generalized anxiety and depression, in your view, if she had just been raised without this kind of trauma? At least the type of depression that they're considering.
Lack of foundation.
I think you're starting again, aren't you?
I'll start it again.
Thank you.
Again, was this depression of a generalized nature, or was it event specific?
Objection, speculation, lack of foundation.
Go over, you can answer.
As Maya reported it to me, it was event specific and tied to the stay at Hopkins, and that is what she reported to me.
So one of the jurors wanted to know about whether you had investigated CRPS as part of the diagnosis process. Can you explain to the jury what secondary gain is?
Yeah, objection. Far outside the scope of question.
No, it's not. It's exactly on the point.
No, it's not. Sustained.
Did Maya exhibit any signs of trying to misrepresent, exaggerate, or otherwise portray her symptoms, either from CRPS or psychologically, falsely to you?
Same objection.
Overall, she can answer that one.
No, she did not.
Are your questions and the way that you handle a patient designed to seek out and determine whether some type of falsification or exaggeration or other reason is embedded in their answers?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overall, you can answer.
So typically that comes with experience, and I've been seeing children and adolescents and adults for a very long time, and it can become apparent when people are embellishing their symptoms, even if it's part of a disorder that they have. Her reports to me did not seem embellished or enhanced in any way.
Thank you, Doctor.
Mr. Shapiro, anything further?
I do not, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else from the jury?
From the jury? Okay. Members of the jury, going to throw you a little curveball here.
Ooh.
You're going to get to sleep in 15 more minutes. So it's a slight curveball. I'm going to ask that you be at the rallying point 15 minutes later. I want you to be coming through the door, Deputy Coley, at 9:15 tomorrow. As always, do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation and receive no information. Have a wonderful evening.
9:15? Did he say 9:15? I guess they. So we're not done. The jury's leaving. The witness is going to be off the stand here. She's going to be dismissed here in just a second. I'm not sure why the judge skipped that part, but the witness is about to be dismissed. And then we have some arguing, some arguing to do. And we'll probably hear about the time limits, about who's used what.
Presidents, Doctor, do you mind having a seat? Are we still doing a proffer? And Doctor, what's happening is there's some things that I'm not allowed to go to the jury that Mr. Anderson wants to put on the record. So he's going to ask you a series of questions, and then there might be a series of additional questions.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't be very long. Is that correct, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm looking for the non-redacted.
Okay, so these questions will have probably some spicy answers, some objections, and the jury's not going to hear them. The whole purpose of this is just to put on the record.
Have these marked for identification. And for the record, this is a comprehensive med-psych systems records of Jacqueline Henschke.
What we need to
Unredacted.
do is make it probably the next number in the defense or in the plaintiff series so that we don't get confused.
Your Honor, on that point, our list continues from 2001 to 2787. Can we make it 2800 or 2801? Just to
2800?
Sure.
So says the clerk, 2800.
May I please the court? Are we still?
You can proceed, and just so the transcript is clear, this is the proffer. The jury is not in our presence.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, 2800 was received.
Is not received. It's just being marked for identification purposes.
In Exhibit 2800, and let me preface this by saying that in this proffer you are not restricted in what you can say.
Okay.
As to these certain facts, but in Exhibit 2800, you had recorded certain things that happened to Maya. First off, can you tell us how that came about and the first time you knew of them?
Yeah, so whenever I do an evaluation, I always, especially the initial evaluation, I always ask about any physical or sexual abuse. And
here it is.
Under physical abuse, Maya reported, under abuse/trauma history, Maya reported under physical that the social worker at the hospital physically grabbed her while at Johns Hopkins, and she experienced unwanted touching under the guise of an examination. I documented that patient also notes that a doctor came into her room and said, quote, "Could I look?" And I did not say yes, and he pulled down my pants and pulled them back up and did not say anything, unquote.
And did she discuss these events with you through the course of the treatment?
She did.
And did they cause her great anxiety or other psychological injury?
Yes. She said that, as far as I can recall, she was not on any birth control and had not seen an obstetrician or a gynecologist for that reason, which typically at age 16, you would see a young girl going to see an OB-GYN. So she did say she felt traumatized from that incident.
So how old was she at this point? Did she make that clear?
She was 16. Oh, when that occurred?
Yes.
When she was in the hospital, when she was 10.
So that would have been when she was approximately 10
Yes.
to 11. And this particular entry there, did Maya give you any reason why she had failed to come forward between the time that this occurred and this visit with you?
No, I did not ask her, though. I didn't. I just was taking down the information. So it was not, I did not know that she had not reported that anywhere else.
And so you and I, and any of the phone calls we had, we did not discuss it either, did we?
No.
And so can you tell the court a bit about repression of these types of events in girls that age, that is 9, 10, 11, prepubescent?
She certainly, Maya described to me in one of my notes, it might have been the first one, that she really didn't like to express emotion. She did not like to have people see her cry. She did not like to express any kind of emotion around others. And so I can only imagine that, like everything else, she felt very embarrassed about the situation that had occurred if she had not mentioned it to anyone else.
And in psychiatric terms, what happened to her? What type of sexual injury, or what is the label for what happened to her?
We would call it battery or assault without, I don't know what the legal term is, but that's what I would call it, without asking for her permission or telling her what was going to happen. Whenever you do an examination as a physician of somebody's genital areas, you should let them know what you're going to do before you do it, why you are doing it, and what the outcome of the exam is, even if it's in a young child.
Was there any reason, assuming it was a doctor at Johns Hopkins, is there any reason why a male doctor would come into a 10-year-old girl's room alone and examine her vaginal area?
Objection foundation.
Overruled. She can answer the question in the proffer.
I cannot think of any reason why.
And so, having heard this now, is this a reportable incident in terms of to the state, given the manner in which it was reported to you, and leaving aside any statute of limitations issues?
It is reportable. She could not recall the name of the doctor, because I usually ask those things in order to make a report. So as far as I know, she could not recall who it was.
assuming that she could report this battery of a sexual nature at Johns Hopkins, would it significantly increase the knowledge of the jury as to why many of her symptoms have occurred?
Objection calls for a legal conclusion, lack of foundation, speculation.
Doctor, you can answer the question.
I think it would be appropriate for the jury to know what she experienced while she was in the hospital, and that's part of what she experienced. That was part of her trauma.
Thank you, Doctor.
Mr. Shapiro, would you like to ask any questions in proffer?
Just very briefly in proffer, Your Honor. Your note does not say this happened at all children's, correct?
She said while at Johns Hopkins.
Well, the previous note says that the social worker incident was at Johns Hopkins, but this note does not say it happened at Johns Hopkins, correct?
No, that all means it happened at Johns Hopkins.
And you as a mandatory reporter were told about an assault at Johns Hopkins that you thought was sexual in nature and you failed to report it?
I am a mandated reporter, but when I call Department of Children and Family Services, if I don't have a name, they can't take the report.
And you're telling me that you had this information about it and you didn't think you had an obligation to report it at the time, is that right?
I didn't have a name to report.
Anything further?
But you did make a call?
To Child and Family Services, I did not make a call because I didn't have a name to report.
It was not described as a social worker that committed this act. Did Maya have a fairly specific description of who it was for you?
She did not. She just said a doctor came into her room.
From the way she was telling the story, did it appear to be male or female?
She indicated that it was a male doctor because she said he pulled down my pants.
And did she say anything else to describe him?
No.
Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Very briefly. Is what you've written here the full description of what was reported to you?
Yes.
Sorry, one other question. At the time, assuming for the purpose of this, that a Dr. Katzenstein at the hospital had a similar note back during Maya's actual stay in the fall of, however you want to phrase it, in the fall of 2016, would Dr. Katzenstein, as a psychologist, be required to report this?
Yes. We are all mandated reporters. Psychologists, psychiatrists.
So is it a violation of the law for a mandatory reporter to receive a report like this and fail to call the state and let it be known that at least there is a basis for looking into it in some way?
Well, object calls for a legal conclusion.
I'm going to sustain that.
So that's a trick question because the witness is condemning herself as well as the hospital.
At that time, at approximately the same time it happened, would Dr. Katzenstein have been in a better position than you some, 7 years later to identify who perhaps it was and more details of the event?
Objection, lack of foundation, completely misstates Dr. Katzenstein's note.
Was Dr. Katzenstein a psychologist at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, best to your knowledge?
As far as I know.
And as a psychologist there at the time, is it easier in terms of if you can get a child to talk about it, to obtain more fact closer to the event?
Yes.
You can answer the question.
Yes. It would have been easier for Dr. Katzenstein to obtain more detailed information and to make the report and more accurate.
Thank you, Doctor.
Based on those questions. Doctor, have you seen Dr. Katzenstein's note?
I have not.
You have, in fairness to you, you have no idea what she recorded, correct?
I do not.
And you are unaware that her testimony on this is going to be that this incident that you described did not happen at All Children's Hospital, correct?
Could you ask that one more time, please?
You're not aware, as you're testifying here today, what Dr. Katzenstein is going to testify on regarding where this incident happened, correct?
I am not aware, no.
And so you're not aware that Dr. Katzenstein is going to testify that this happened, what Maya reported to her did not happen at All Children's Hospital, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, for improper for proffer.
She's already said she doesn't know.
Okay.
So
I'm not aware.
How could
Are
she
you
know what's
aware of
going
any
to happen?
similar incident occurring in the Lurie's Children's Hospital record?
No.
Okay. That's all, thank you.
The witness be excused.
are we finished with the proffer first? Are we finished with the proffer?
Call up very quickly Dr. Katzenstein's note to show the doctor.
She hasn't seen.
Mr. Anderson,
They just
said
object.
she didn't see the note. So what's the point at this point?
I wanted to make sure that the doctor saw the note to see exactly what the terminology was used at that time on, I think it was...
She's already said she hasn't seen the note, so I think we have exhausted her knowledge on the subject. So we're not pulling up someone else's note. Is there anything else, though, you want in the proffer?
I'm zipping up my binder.
So that's a no. Your proffer's over. Is that correct?
Proffer's complete, given the court's ruling.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
So the transcript is complete. This concludes the proffer. And now may this doctor be excused, or does she need to remain under subpoena?
I don't know.
She's going to remain.
I think we're going to keep her under subpoena for a
Yep.
little while, Judge.
Okay, doctor, you're welcome to go back to Jacksonville. If they need to call you back, I'm sure they will call you and talk to you about that.
But meanwhile, you can't talk to
Because
anyone.
you're still under the subpoena, please do not talk about the case with anyone other than the attorneys in this matter.
Okay.
Thank you for being here, doctor, and have a safe drive back.
Thank you.
Okay. While she is leaving, let's talk our logistics so we can get out of here ourselves.
Yes, Judge. We have been considering how to make this trial operate a lot faster and a lot easier for the jury. And we would like to request that tomorrow afternoon, could we have some hearing time later on in the day? The other reason is, given the events, I would like to get out of here and go see my family a bit. Early, leave a bit earlier than 6 o'clock. And so we were hoping that tomorrow we could call a few witnesses, show a few depositions, and then have at least an hour to, how long? 2 hours to go over these exhibits, clean all this up, and make sure that this trial goes smoothly. It also assists us in how many questions we're going to ask and what kind of questions we're going to ask if we know what's in evidence and what does not.
Who do you want to call tomorrow? And let's talk time.
Tomorrow morning, we plan to play 2 depositions: Rebecca Johnson and Catherine Beatty.
How much time is
We
each
get
at this
Beatty's
point?
deposition tomorrow.
Beatty's 2 volumes. Volume 1 is 33 minutes. Volume 2 is 45 minutes. And
Beatty's an hour and 15.
Rebecca Johnson.
So Catherine Beatty's 1 hour and 15 minutes approximately.
I just said that.
Just a moment. Rebecca Johnson's video, as edited by the defense team, is 1 hour, 9 minutes.
And 1 hour, 9 minutes, Your Honor, for Rebecca Johnson.
And do you anticipate needing any exhibits coming in tomorrow for that?
Not for that, Your Honor. We have 2 live witnesses. Who was on the list? Did we put Elena?
Kushner.
Elena Kushner, Judge, is a similar incident, similar event planned under that 404. And we want to call her to testify that she had an experience at Johns Hopkins, not only substantially similar, virtually identical to my clients. And so we would wish to call her, in other words, Sally Smith coming in, undisclosed as working for someone other than Johns Hopkins.
So this is, you're basically asking for like Williams rule type of testimony. Have you filed a motion to that effect?
Judge, you've already granted an order
I thought that
on
was
a
for
motion in
criminal
limine
proceedings,
that
Judge.
this would not, testimony would not be allowed.
Well, I do remember that.
Right.
Well, it's I took a look and I thought that the Williams rule, it applied, the notice is applicable to criminal cases, and this is purely civil.
Well, you're right that Williams rule is a criminal-based rule, but you still have to give notice. And I've already ruled that what happened to other people at other times and in other circumstances is not relevant in this particular case. Just like,
So we have a pending punitive damages count or open allegation, Judge. And so our ability to establish the facts for that is greatly enhanced if we can show that the defendant is acting consistently to that conduct in other ways. And so our problem here is
you're going to need a lot more legal discussion about whether this witness is going to be allowed. And, this is one of those that you probably need case law and very specific motion. This isn't a just let's talk about it and let it happen.
I suspected there would be a proffer for it, but we can file a motion if the court.
I mean, if you want to do a proffer, that's fine, but I'm asking about witnesses who are actually going to be testifying to the jury.
Yes, Judge, my contemplation was that on all of these witnesses there would have to be a proffer before they would be allowed to testify to the jury so the court can see whether the scope of the testimony falls within the law. So if you want us to brief it, we can brief it.
On that particular issue, sure, because I've already ruled that evidence like this can't come in, so I really would feel uncomfortable without some sort of actual motion and case law to articulate exactly what you're doing and why you're legally allowed to do what you're proposing to do.
Yes, Your Honor.
So that's Elena who?
Go ahead.
Say again.
That was Elena Brown?
Kushner.
And so other than those two depositions, Mr. Anderson, are you planning on calling anyone live tomorrow?
Let me look for just a moment. No major witnesses, let's put it that way. These will be
any minor ones?
So,
oh my goodness.
We request hearing time in the afternoon. Those two depositions will fill up the majority of the morning. Pending the court's decision on hearing time, we would also potentially call Joyce Sacco, Tammy, I think you say special, it's Speceyal, and Deborah Salisbury if we had to fill out the day. But we prefer to have hearing time. And the reason for that, Your Honor, is that we anticipate calling Maya Kowalski early next week. And we don't believe that the 30 minutes or 45 minutes that the court has been allowing us in the mornings is going to be sufficient given the number of objections. For all of the exhibits we'd like to bring in through Maya Kowalski. So we'd like some additional time tomorrow afternoon to work through that process so that we can call her early next week.
So again, I would just ask, you threw out several names. Who are the plaintiffs?
Let me ask this. Why don't we do this? And this is not a ruling, this is just to throw it out there. I'm not having the jury start until 9:15. The earliest that I can start with you all tomorrow is 8:45. That's the earliest I can start with you tomorrow. If we don't need to do exhibits in the morning, perhaps you all could come at 9 and then the jury start at 9:15. We do the two depositions. We send the jury home. We go to lunch, come back, and address issues. If we need to take proffers, we can take proffers. And that way you don't have to worry about live witnesses in the afternoon. And it also allows you to, and I told you earlier, whatever you're going to need to do, we'll accommodate and make it work. So I'm happy to do that if that is good for both sides.
Yes. The defense has no objection to that, but just so neither Mr. Hunter, Ms. Crowles, or I are up preparing late, it sounds like there will be no live witnesses tomorrow.
On that basis, we'll follow the judge's suggestion, and you don't have live witnesses, you'll just have to sit through depots.
Now, let's talk about the legal issues so Mr. Altenburn and Mr. Elegant have an idea as to what we're talking about.
I have one legal issue. We have a pending motion to admit child abuse hearsay we'd like to be taken up tomorrow afternoon.
You asked for it.
Well, we'll talk about whether we're going to take it up. But we'll talk about the motion.
Motion for whose hearsay?
Are you wanting more of a
indication of what their proffers are about? I mean, I'm not too sure what this anecdotal evidence they're describing is going to be.
Well, they can do whatever they want in proffer. I'm trying to figure out what the legal issues are. One, so I've got an idea so I can think about it tonight. Two, that all the lawyers can be thinking about it tonight, especially since you're not having to prepare for a witness tomorrow. Because I know you also probably want to sleep tonight as well.
The damages, if this is something that occurred prior to our events and that Johns Hopkins was found liable for, so that they were on notice to change, that might be relevant to punitive. Yes, but I get the sense that that's not what this is about.
Judge, what I'm hearing is that they have a lot of exhibits that they want to use with Maya, and there's a probably objection, in all candor, with most of them. And I think that that's, if I heard right, is the primary focus of what you want to deal with tomorrow. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
That's correct.
And a lot of them are audio recordings that we are objecting to, and there's, I think, multiple issues with them. So I think that's the focus.
I'm fine, although I know Mr. Altenburn has been trying to get to the front of the line for several days.
I'm happy to go behind Mr. Pickles.
If you're limiting instructions, shouldn't take too much time. I don't think they're a little.
He wants his limited instruction.
And Mr. Altenburn, we can talk about this more tomorrow, but I'm starting to want to really start focusing in on
jury
the
instructions,
verdict form and the jury instructions.
Judge, we would like the jury instructed sooner rather than later regarding the limitation of some of the evidence that has come in that were let in on state of the mind.
And what we can do, and my hope is that you'll have whatever you're proposing tomorrow so we can talk about it tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
He's just not forceful
to recap,
enough. He sits in the back.
You all will appear tomorrow at 9 a.m., not at 8:30, at 9 a.m. We're going to play 2 depots, and we're going to send the jury home. We'll take a lunch, then we'll come back. We'll do exhibits. We'll talk about whether we're going to talk about the child victim hearsay. We're going to talk about Mr. Altenburn's instructions and any other instructions that anyone wants to write out. And of course, Mr. Anderson's free to go whenever he wants and or needs to.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Are we good to go at this point?
Just a shot clock update.
Oh, yes. Okay, plaintiffs today, 3 hours, 50 minutes. Defendant, 1 hour, 35 minutes. The plaintiffs are at 24 hours, 25 minutes.
Halfway.
The defendants are at 8
Halfway.
hours, 10 minutes.
To hear Mr.
How
Anderson
much
say.
does the jury get?
Well, that's a fair question.
And apparently it cuts. Let's see. Hang on. What's the... Do we have audio here?
Buddy, and then let's say the jury is 10 minutes of actual me asking questions. I'm just dividing it 5 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm doing that 50-50.
I've never seen a transcript that has this kind of jury.
So they're dividing the jury time.
Well, I will tell you, Justice Wells used to say, can't say that I've not seen it all because I surely haven't. Okay. And no one wanted to tell me what the score of the Rays game was?
We don't want to
doesn't
spoil it
matter.
for you, Judge.
Have a good night. We'll be in recess.
Wax last night.
There we go. All right, we are done with that. We're done. The last question was, how much did the jury get? They were asking, okay, so these jury questions are taking a lot of time. How are you allocating that time, and who are you giving it to? And the judge is saying, I'm splitting it between you. So that's interesting. This is spicy. Jennifer wants to know how much money was donated for the hair transformations. I think it came up to equal money on each side, so I think no action has to be taken. I think we remain where we am. My hair is safe, I think. $10 for, $10 against is, I think, where we ended up. Let's see. Please explain the time thing. Rhonda, because this is a civil trial, let me get rid of the objections floating over me. There we go. Because this is a civil trial, each side has an equal amount of time. And we heard as the judge gave the total time for the plaintiff. We don't have prosecution and defense. We have a plaintiff and defense. Plaintiff are the people who are suing the hospital. So the total time for the plaintiff is 24 hours and something minutes. And as soon as he heard that, Mr. Anderson said halfway, meaning that they've got either 50 hours or 48 hours of time allotted to them for their case. That's a lot of time. Okay, that's a lot of time considering how long we've already been here. But yeah, the sidebars, I don't know. I don't know how the judge is doing this. I don't know if he has like an assistant that's got like a stopwatch that she's running back and forth one way or the other. Cameraman got antsy. He's like, look, we already had a long day and a late lunch. I'm out of here. We did hear a little bit of news. And people were asking, why are we so interested in Mr. Anderson's private life? Before lunch, the judge called Mr. Anderson and Mr. Oh man, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Defense and there I said it, prosecution. Defense and plaintiff up to the bench and handed a note to Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Anderson read the note and handed it to the defense. The defense immediately started patting him on the shoulder, and you heard it. You could see his mouth saying, "I'm sorry," and the judge was mouthing, "What do you want to do?" And Mr. Anderson stayed up at the front with his head down quite a bit, and they cut the cameras with that. We didn't see what happened beyond that. It now seems clear that some news has come in regarding his family. As he indicated, he said, "I'd like to spend some time with my family tomorrow, based on what's occurred." So something either tragic or very unforeseen, timing-wise, has happened. So this doesn't mean there was a death, but it could be something very serious, life-threatening, involving a family member. So that's just something to keep in mind, what's going on in his life, as he's also in the middle of a very, very high-profile case. Sidebars are usually decided on who wins the sidebar. Laurie Leaney, that's using the same rule for hockey, right? When a hockey fight, the loser of the fight is the person that falls down first. It's not who started it or why it was started. It's whoever falls down first, they go in the penalty box. Loser pays, right? Let's see. Maybe he bet on the Brewers like me, says Ivan, and he saw the score of the game and he's disappointed. No, I think really something really sad has probably occurred in his family's life. So, thoughts and prayers for his family. All right. Anything else? I'm excited. Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm more excited for tomorrow and what's going to happen, because we get a full half day of arguing back and forth without the jury there, which is spicy as all get out. I'm not sure if I'm more excited for that, or I'm excited to just hear what Rob has to say tonight about what's happened today over on Law and Lumber. I'll pop in there tonight and look forward to seeing a bunch of you there. I get to re-listen to this. Rob listens to it on higher speed, so you get through a lot of things faster, but I can't wait to see what happens. Purple shirt looks great. Oh, I forgot. When I wear my purple shirt, I'm supposed to do this. Hey, Siri, turn my lights purple. There we go. Watch around the TV there. There we go. Now I have purple lights that match my shirt. And if you have lights, they're purple now as well. So, all right. If we send you a wig that looks like the judge, would you wear it? Who said that? Mary Murphy. I've received a judge's wig already, and I did wear it. So I'm not anti-wig. And maybe it's appropriate, but there's a good chance we're watching a police chase on Friday that happened yesterday morning early, that involves a wig. Let's see. I think maybe we can find a judge hair wig for you. I don't know if they make wigs like that. And I have a very hard time making fun of his hair. I'm not making fun of the judge's hair, because I know that I am slowly going from full head of hair to solar panel mode in my own hair. And it's just a matter of time before I too am in the same situation. Okay, there it is. Thank you, Samantha, for posting the Law and Lumber YouTube channel. That's exciting to be there. If you guys want more of this and want some legal analysis to some of the things that we've talked about or possibly didn't talk about today, Rob does a great job. I love his channel for that. And so we'll see you in chat over there. We'll go raid. I don't know. He goes live at 7, so he's live in, is it 7 Central? So he's an hour and a half. We'll pop in there and say hi. No, we can't tease people for things they can't control, and I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that myself. Okay. I might look good from this camera angle. I mean, if I put the camera on like this, it might look like a full head of hair, but really I'm just, oh, look at that. My courtroom curtains are showing. How embarrassing. There we go. Oh, now the other side's showing. I have a very narrow courtroom. This is all we have right there. All right. Any other questions? Given the amount of evidence that you've seen in this case, where are you leaning right now? Matthew, because we've only seen the plaintiff's evidence, I think they've proven some elements of their allegations. I think that the evidence strongly supports some of the things that occurred. I think they're also reaching and trying to go for, they're going for a grand slam here when really they might just end up with a double or a triple or a single run, I don't think that they're going to get everything they're asking for as far as the allegations. Oh, buddy, your cough sounds awful. Little boy with a little bit of a croupy cough. I don't think they're going to get everything, but I think they're definitely going to get some of it. There's no way in my mind that, where I stand right now, and I'm in a position where I admit that my mind could change on this as we get more evidence from the other side. But there's no way in my mind that everything I've seen will be discounted by something that I see from the defense. I have a hard time just the hard evidence that supports some of the allegations. And I'd have to go back and look exactly which ones I'm speaking of, because I can't remember off the top of my head. But it seems like a couple things, they probably got cause to go after Johns Hopkins for. But everything they're alleging, they might have over-described or overcharged a little bit. That's my take, my gut feel right now. Anything else? Police chase was amazing. I can't wait to show it. I've got 3 camera angles we're going to try to put together, and I don't know when I'm going to do that. Maybe while I'm watching Law and Lumber tonight, I'll try to edit it together. Final question. Based on the questions we received from the jury so far, how are you reading the tea leaves on their thought processes? Matthew, I hear one juror that seems very pro-hospital, and I hear a juror that's very smart, legally speaking. Like either a law student or lawyer type smart. I hear somebody who's got a lot of experience with probably as a patient, and this is just me trying to literally read the tea leaves and sort of extrapolate on some stuff we've heard. But I think a lot of the questions, especially early on, were in favor of the plaintiff, almost allowing elaboration on big points that the plaintiff witness made. Seeming like they were trying to expand on that win that they got in prior testimony. So I think they've got more than 50% of the jury right now on board. That may change as defense gets up there and presents their case, but I think they're in a good spot to try to secure a win. I want to know if court orders prohibited all family visits or if the hospital made that call. Knight, I think what we've seen so far first of all, that's a great question. What we've seen so far in testimony is that you don't need to see 2 of me. That's just too much. What we've seen so far in the testimony is that the hospital appears to have made calls regarding the family's treatment and who can go in and what can happen, and then reached out to Child Protective Services and asked for validation through an order or an email justifying what they did. So it seems that it was the tail wagging the dog type thing. It was going the wrong way. Instead of the court directing the hospital to do, and the hospital was just following orders, it seems the hospital was telling the court what to do, and the court was just following orders. That might get them into trouble on a couple things. I don't know. We'll hear more of that, and I'm sure the hospital is going to have some evidence to present on that as well. No way the hospital should have blocked the priest, father, brother, lawyer, etc. The hospital was in the wrong on so much. Barbara, I think that's what I'm saying. I think there's some things that they did wrong. I'm just not sure if everything they did was wrong, considering some of the stuff that they blocked was after the hospital had custody and they were concerned about things. And even though it seems wrong in some way in the situation, the hospital might have been in the right, or at least not be financially culpable for a decision they made trying to follow the advice. It's going to get hairy. It's going to be a little strange. Let's see. Crypto sites have Maya as heavy favorites for those that are betting on this, I guess, says Ivan. Y'all have me watching Law and Lumber now too. Chantel, you can't go wrong there. Rob is great. Off topic, your beard and mustache is growing incredibly fast. That's because I water it. When I drink, I spill, and it's like Miracle-Gro. It happens quickly. Let's see. So Matthew Harris, we're going to watch for your Can Lawyers Lie? video tomorrow. That's going to be exciting. I wonder, I definitely know police can lie, so we'll find out if lawyers can. Can you explain what happened this morning? I got here right when chat was dumbfounded. I'm kind of weird about something about Maya's relationships. I missed it. Paywell for real. I'm trying to be careful about that because, first of all, she is a minor still. This is very personal information that I think both sides agreed they didn't want to go into. And I pronounced the word, which is basically what they were talking about, what they were dancing around. And some of the testimony today with this last witness before the jury left addressed this or broached this area. But basically they're saying because of all of this, because of everything that's happened, will Maya have issues with relationships in the future? And they wanted to be very careful to not get into intimate details about relationships, and that's what they were dancing around. They were dancing around questions because there was information, very personal information about Maya's life that really has no business in trial or in the public here. So that's the area they were skirting around, but still wanted to still get as close to the line as possible. Luckily, both sides agreed to exclude statements that would have just shone light on a very private area of a juvenile's life, and then there's all sorts of other issues there as well. So that's where it was. Will you watch the Sarah Boone trial? Oh yes, we're going to watch the Sarah Boone trial for sure. It's currently, I think it's slated for. I haven't seen a new date. What is it? December 10th or 11th? It was. I know the date was on. What was it? It was scheduled originally for the 2nd of this month, but that got pushed. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Glad that answered your question. Thank you very much. Glad I could help out. Razor losing 10-1. Is that what the judge wanted to hear about? Betting on true crime is riveting. I didn't know you could bet on true crime. I'm not a betting man myself, Ivan, although I have made a bet or two on this channel with certain individuals about whether specifically Sarah Boone is going to testify in her own defense. And I think there's a mug on the line for that one, but I can't remember who I bet with. So I'll have to go back and look. Virginia says, you just painted all police with the same brush. Wrong. What did I say about police? Virginia, I'm not sure what I said about police. Did I misspeak? I don't remember. I mean, I have the memory of a goldfish, so I could have been talking about police and don't remember. Oh, the police can lie? I'm not saying police are liars. I'm saying that the Supreme Court has ruled that police are allowed to lie in the performance of their jobs to get information. That's just a fact. That's a case. That's case law. It stands. We know that. I've experienced that firsthand in interrogations myself, where I was being questioned. Police can lie to you. They can lie. I'm not saying police will lie or all police are liars. I didn't mean that at all. So please forgive me if I came across as implying that. Let's see. As we're wrapping up, I just want to share a small milestone. This is exciting. My channel just broke the 10K subscriber mark yesterday. Okay, so it deserves a party. And a lot of that is thanks to you and the RA community. Thank you. Matthew, your channel was great before we came along. We're excited to be a little part of that. That is awesome. 10K is super exciting. Congratulations. You and Brandy are both at that level and growing quickly. That is super exciting. Congratulations. That is awesome news. Epic exposure. Do you follow Nancy Grace at all? Not closely. I mean, she's been a part of several trials. She was at the Murdaugh trial, and we followed that and some of her comments just as an observer. But I'm not like a Nancy Grace follower. Everything she does. We'll all be watching Sarah Boone for sure. I love these questions. Anything else I can answer? Huge congratulations on Party. I know that probably just scared people to death, but for Matthew about the 10K subs, that is great. Okay, bombshell tonight, says Holly Mack. You're talking about on Law and Lumber? Kirian says, I might do a YouTube channel for true crime. I tell you, there are as many opinions out there as there are people, and I'd highly encourage it. If you've got a story to tell, if you've got some insight that you can offer, I'd highly encourage it. The internet is big enough for all of us, honestly. There are a lot of people out there and a lot of different ways to present information. Dreamscape says, now I want to know why you were questioned by police. It was a bomb. I found a bomb. Not like a fake bomb, but a real bomb. And I found it. And then I found the people who made it. And it looked really suspicious, and they thought I was involved. And I was not. So I've found more bombs than most bomb squads in police departments. But it was a big bomb, and it could have killed me if they had set it off when they were trying to. Anyway, that's a fun story. I'll have to tell that sometime. I thought I already told that story on here. Not with a detector. I was up actually going fishing, and I found the bomb in the mountains. So it's a long story. I can't tell it at the end of the day. It takes too much time. Let's see. Shannon says, I just posted newest date for Sarah Boone for you. Shannon, let me just see when I missed it. I'll have to look at the. That's a good podcast story. It is, Eric. It is. This is a story that you might know some landmarks in. I think I've told you the story as well. Let's just say some of your irrigation water may not have existed had that bomb gone off. Let's see. My life is so interesting. It's not really. It's terribly boring. Just your normal hiking find. Yep, that's what happens. Virginia, I don't know why interesting things happen. I was fishing one time and I found a stolen car because I had polarized glasses, and I was fishing on top of a stolen car. Like standing on the bank and fishing for like 15 minutes with my polarized glasses on my head, and then I flipped it down, and you can like see through water with polarized glasses. It takes the reflection off the water completely. And I flipped them down, and it's like there's a car like suddenly in front of me. It was almost like a ghost appearing right in front of you, like when you're watching one of those videos that has a prank finish in the end. It's like a screaming face in front of you. It was like that. Suddenly there's just like suddenly a car right in front of me. So that was stolen. Nobody was in it. Sharon Abbey says, my name is Sharon, not Shannon. I'm sorry, Sharon. I apologize. In my old age, an R and N look very similar, and I glance too fast. That's my apology. I'll try to do better. So thank you very much, Sharon. All right. Anything else? I heard your Halloween story. It's a bad one, huh? It was very bad. May I ask what application you use to stream on YouTube? You sure can. You'll be surprised. I don't use one. I don't use an application. I use hardware. So let me show you really quickly. The hardware I'm using is called Ayden Mini Extreme ISO, which is a 8-port. So it has 8 different plugs on the back for HDMI inputs, and then has 2 different outputs as well as 2 different USB outputs and an internet output. So this device itself, I could turn off this laptop. I could shut off all the other computers, and this would still stream to the internet all by itself. So it's hardware. It's a hardware streaming solution. I like that because it doesn't overheat and shut down. It just works all the time. And so I use that with a lot of other stuff. And 47 or 4, I think I'm up to 48 cables now. What time are we starting tomorrow? The judge said the attorneys had to be there at 9, so we've got to be here at least by 8:45. That'll give Mrs. R.A. time to exercise, and everything will work out. Okay. Oh, I didn't hear this. Kelly, this is the first I'm hearing. Brandy and JT have a 10K celebration Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. That is awesome. That the celebration is going to be huge. They have a lot of things to give away. So if you want some merch and want to enter some contests or be able to receive some merch from this amazing threshold as well, Sunday the 8th Eastern Time. That's going to be awesome. That is going to be just wonderful. I think we sent in some special stickers for her to give away as well. So I can't wait for you guys to receive those. They're custom edition stickers celebrating the joint friendship between our channels. Anything else? Steph sells stuff by the seashore. This is a tongue twister, Steph. Steph sells stuff by the seashore. Thank you very much for the kind words. It's wonderful that you found us, and thanks for being an important part of this fun community. I think we're going to end it on that. I think I've answered all the questions. Kyle Annette, I'm sure I already answered, but in states that allow jury questions, does it apply to criminal cases too? Thanks in advance. Yes, it does. We watched in Colorado with Letitia Stout. We watched that trial, which was a criminal trial that had juror questions as well, which we love. I wish more states would do it. I really do. Sammy, get some sleep. Get some sleep. Thanks for sticking around with us. I appreciate it. Random question: can people in the UK be called up for American jury? No. You have to be a U.S. citizen to be called to serve on a jury. I think that's one of the questions they'll ask you. You have to be a U.S. citizen to serve. I'll see most of you on Law and Lumber. I'll just be poking around in chat a little bit. I'm looking forward to hearing as we had some great spicy argument today what Rob's take is on some of it and some of the judges' rulings. Okay, you have to be a voter too, like registered to vote. I know typically, Christy, I know they use voter registration to find jurors. And Ivan says, and not a felon. So let's just keep adding things on to this. But yeah, there's some qualifications there. Sarah Trial date is my birthday, December 11th. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. December 11th is going to be, we're going to watch for that. Originally, Sharon, it was going to happen the same day as Brian Koberger. Luckily, both of them pushed. Brian Koberger is pushed off. I'd be surprised if anything happens major next year at all. In Brian Koberger's case, it's going to be longer before that happens. You need a driver's license too, says Meaty Banana. What about just a state ID? Would that work? It's the motor voter law. All right, we're going to be back. We're going to be back in the morning. Let's see. I think I've answered all the questions. If not, I apologize. Thank you. This has been a really fun day. This is what I call the best community to watch true crime with, and it's because of you guys. Thank you. It would not be the same without you. I appreciate all of it. Every single one of you for being here. Tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love. Smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better, and please stay safe till we go live again tomorrow morning at 8:45 in the morning. First person in chat, as always, will be awarded the internet. If you'd like that to be you, make sure you click the subscribe button and then just be here first and say something in chat. That's all it takes to win. You too could have internet ownership on your resume. Because he's the guy. I want to get a law degree to be a YouTube lawyer. Adam, granted, I now dub thee a lawyer on YouTube.
Bring the jury.
So, thanks, you guys. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Don't miss the forest for the trees.
I apologize.
Let no dead horse go unbeaten.